We all know that life moves so fast, it barely gives us a second to breathe. One moment you're calm, the next you're stressing over the tiniest things or spiraling over thoughts that don't even make sense at 3 a.m. But what if there was a way to slow everything down, even for a moment? Tonight, in Listen to the Wisdom of the Buddha, Buddhist sleep story, we'll explore gentle truths that help quiet the mind and soften the heart. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. The Bodhi tree rises above you like an ancient guardian, its wide branches stretching out into the night sky, leaves shimmering as the breeze brushes through them. The ground beneath you feels warm and solid, holding you with a kind of familiarity, like it's known you far longer than you've known yourself. This is where so many seekers have sat, and now tonight, it's your turn. You lower yourself gently onto the earth, letting gravity do the work, letting the weight of your day slip off your shoulders as if the tree itself is taking it from you piece by piece. The Buddha sits a short distance away, calm and steady, as if carved from the stillness of the night. His presence isn't dramatic or overwhelming. It's subtle, grounded, the kind of calm that doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. And the moment you settle your breath, you realize the space around him feels different, softer somehow, like the air has chosen to slow down out of respect. He doesn't rush to speak. He simply looks at you with eyes that hold the entire night sky inside them. Quiet, steady, endlessly patient. You don't feel judged here. You don't feel compared, analyzed, or expected to be anything other than exactly who you are in this moment. That alone is its own kind of relief. The Buddha lifts his gaze to the branches above as a few leaves drift down, swirling lightly before coming to rest near your feet. His voice, when it finally breaks the silence, is soft, like water moving over smooth stones. "Be still," he says, not as a command, but as an offering. Just be here. Nothing else is required. You breathe in. The air tastes clean, almost sweet, like it's been filtered through centuries of peace. You breathe out. Something inside you unclenches. Something you didn't even realize you were gripping so tightly. The Buddha watches your breath, as if it's the most natural thing in the world, and in his gaze you feel the quiet truth. You don't have to try to be peaceful. Peace begins by letting go of trying. For a moment, the two of you simply sit there, sharing the silence like old friends who don't need to fill it with words. The Bodhi tree sways again, slow and rhythmic, matching the rise and fall of your breath. The cicadas hum somewhere in the distance, their song lilting in and out of the stillness like a soft background melody meant just for this moment. The Buddha places his hands gently in his lap, his posture easy and natural. He isn't stiff or tense, just present. Like every muscle knows exactly how to simply exist without resisting itself. You notice your own shoulders dropping a little more, your jaw relaxing, your breathing deepening without effort. When you stop chasing your thoughts, the Buddha says quietly, you begin to notice they were never running from you. They simply drift. You let that sink in, watching a few more leaves fall. Drift. They drift. Maybe your mind can too. The Buddha continues, awareness is not something you force. It is something you allow. Just as the moon rises when the sky is ready, clarity comes when the mind is unhurried. His tone is steady, warm, almost like the night itself is speaking through him. You realize he's not telling you to silence your mind. He's teaching you how to sit beside its noise without getting pulled into it. The leaves fall, the breeze moves, your thoughts float in and float out. And for once, you don't fight it. You just watch. A soft stillness begins to stretch between each breath. A subtle pause that feels like slipping into cool water on a hot day. The Buddha watches with quiet approval, not praising, not measuring, simply witnessing. You're not failing when your mind wanders, he says. You're only learning what it means to return. There's something comforting in that, returning. You can do that. You can always do that. The night deepens and the stars peek through the branches above. The air feels even lighter now, like the world has settled into a gentle exhale. The Buddha nods to the shadows beyond the tree, a silent cue that there is more to learn, a deeper calm waiting to unfold. For now, just sit, he says. Feel the stillness. Let it touch the parts of you that have forgotten how to rest. You close your eyes briefly, letting the stillness wrap around you like a soft cloak. And when you open them again, the Buddha's gaze is already guiding you toward the next step in this journey, toward understanding the restless mind and how to bring it into peace. And so, the path continues. The Buddha settles onto the earth once more, this time near a shallow pool where moonlight glides across the surface. You kneel beside him, watching how the dim light trembles with every passing breeze. The Buddha gestures toward the ripples, small disturbances that shimmer, widen, then fade. This, he says gently, is the mind when it is stirred. You watch the water again, and the metaphor clicks immediately. Your thoughts really do feel like this. Constant movement, tiny impacts turning into waves that take too long to disappear. The Buddha senses your recognition and nods with quiet approval. The mind moves the way wind moves across water, he continues. It isn't a sign of failure. It is simply its nature. He scoops a bit of water into his palm. It slips through his fingers effortlessly, leaving nothing but a cool trace behind. But when we try to force it still, he cups his hand tightly, pressing the water inside. Most of it spills immediately, escaping the pressure. We lose even more. You let your shoulders soften at the truth of it. You've been trying to control your thoughts your whole life, gripping them, judging them, wrestling them into silence. No wonder it never worked. Calm does not come through force, the Buddha says. It comes through softness. His words drift through the night with the same gentleness he's describing. You feel your breath loosen, untangling itself from the knots you'd tied during the day. The air tastes lighter, calmer, as if your lungs have been waiting a long time for this kind of freedom. Let us begin, he says. He places a hand over his heart, and you mirror the gesture. The warmth of your palm anchors you, pulling your awareness into your body. No expectations, no pressure, just presence, just breathing. Feel the breath as it enters, he says. Cool, steady, effortless. You inhale, noticing the faint chill of the night air brushing the back of your throat. Feel the breath as it leaves, he continues. Warm, soft, unhurried. You exhale, slower than before, and something in your chest relaxes as if it has finally been given permission. The Buddha closes his eyes, guiding you deeper. You do not chase after the breath. You do not pull it closer. You simply allow it to come and allow it to go. Your next breath arrives like a quiet wave, and your next exhale sinks into the earth like a whisper. Thoughts will rise, the Buddha says. Let them rise. Let them drift. Do not ask them to stay. Do not ask them to leave. A thought passes through your mind. Small, random, unimportant. You almost react to it, almost follow it. But then you remember his words. Drift. Let it drift. And so you do. The thought floats up, softens, dissolves. You didn't push it away. You just didn't grab it. And for once, that feels enough. Notice the silence that follows, he says. There is silence, not loud or dramatic, but subtle. A small spaciousness inside your mind, like a window cracked open in a warm room, letting a bit of cool air in. The Buddha opens his eyes and looks toward the water again. When the wind softens, the water settles. The pool has grown still. The moon reflected on its surface is clear now, solid, unbroken. For a moment, it looks like another sky lying at your feet. This stillness, he says softly, is not created by force. It arrives when disturbance is not fed. You let those words settle in your chest, where they feel strangely comforting, not fed. You don't have to fix your mind. You just have to stop fueling the chaos. Calm becomes possible, the Buddha adds, when you finally stop wrestling with yourself. He rises again, slowly, giving you time to absorb the lesson. The night breeze moves through the leaves, but the water stays clear now. The ripples have faded, and the moon's reflection holds steady. Remember this, he says, for the mind you quiet here is the same mind you carry into the world. He turns toward the path leading deeper into the grove, where faint lanterns flicker in the distance. And now that the mind has been softened, he says, we can walk into the next teaching. How awareness follows you beyond stillness into every step of your life. The earth beneath your feet feels different now, softer somehow, as if the ground itself is paying attention. The night air carries a delicate sweetness, the scent of leaves warmed by moonlight, and every sound seems just a little more crisp. As you walk beside the Buddha, you notice how his steps land with a kind of effortless grace, neither hurried nor heavy, as if he's greeting the ground with every movement rather than pushing against it. Walking, he begins softly, is not a task. It is a conversation. You look down at your own feet and realize how often you've walked without ever really being there for it. Your mind always somewhere else. The future, the past, the stress, the noise. But here, now, beneath the lantern-lit branches, walking feels almost like a new language. The Buddha pauses and turns toward you. Feel the earth, he says gently, not with your mind, but with your body. You shift your weight and feel the soil receive you. Steady, cool, supportive. Your next step is slower, more deliberate. You're not rushing. You're not escaping anything. You're simply landing. One step, the Buddha says, is enough to reveal the present moment. He takes another step, and you follow, matching the rhythm. Heel touches earth. Weight shifts. Toes lift. The cycle repeats, smooth and natural. Step after step, your awareness begins to catch up with your body. Most minds run far ahead of the feet, he continues. They chase what is not here and forget what is already beneath them. You think about all the times your mind has sprinted miles beyond your body, dragging you through worries and scenarios before anything even happened. Here, though, there is nowhere to run. The path encourages slowness. The trees lean in close, and the lanterns hum softly, as if the forest wants you present with every fiber. The Buddha guides you to pause. Place your hand over your heart, he says. You do. Your breath deepens. Now take one mindful breath, he whispers, in and out. Your inhale expands gently beneath your palm, a small rising wave. Your exhale lowers it, softening your chest and shoulders. This breath is also a step, he says, a step into yourself. He begins walking again, and you follow, syncing breath with movement. Inhale, step, exhale, step. The rhythm feels almost like a quiet mantra. The world around you is always speaking, the Buddha explains as you walk. The sound of the Isa, leaves, the chorus of insects, the distant wind. These are reminders that you are part of something alive. You listen. The forest feels like it's breathing with you. But mindfulness, he adds, is not only with the ears, it is with the skin, the hands, the eyes, the breath. He stops beside a tall bamboo stalk, tapping it lightly with his fingers. The hollow echo sings softly. Feel this, he says. You reach out and touch the smooth surface. Cool, firm, simple. But the difference is in how you're touching it. Slowly, fully aware of the sensation instead of brushing past it as if it means nothing. This awareness, the Buddha says, is the beginning of freedom. You withdraw your hand and let the sensation linger. It's subtle but grounding. Mindfulness in walking. Mindfulness in breathing. Mindfulness in sensing. Each brings you back to the reality of this moment, he continues. And when you are in the moment, suffering loosens its grip. His words drift into your awareness like falling leaves, landing gently before sinking in. You realize you've often walked through life without actually being in it, reacting, rushing, worrying. But here, in this simple act of walking mindfully, there is peace. The Buddha begins moving again, but slower this time, inviting you to deepen the practice. As you walk, ask yourself, where is my mind now? If it has wandered, bring it back, not with force, with kindness. You try this. A stray thought pops into your head, something from earlier, something unimportant. Instead of grabbing it, you observe it float by, like a lantern drifting down a river. Then you return to your steps. Heel, shift, toe, heel, shift, toe. That is the practice, he says, not to stop the wandering, but to return. You continue down the path together, each step pulling you deeper into the night's calm. The lanterns begin to fade behind you, replaced by moonlight filtering through the trees in soft silver streaks. Eventually, the Buddha stops at a clearing where the earth dips into a shallow valley. Here, he says, we step into the next understanding, why the mind suffers and where that suffering begins. His voice is gentle, steady, preparing you for the next layer of truth. The path forward waits. You settle onto the grass beside the Buddha, feeling the earth's coolness seep through your palms. The clearing is spacious, peaceful, and exposed to the wide, dark sky, almost like the world has opened itself, so the truth can be spoken without walls. The Buddha sits with the same calm steadiness he always carries, but there is a certain weight to his silence now, a grounded seriousness that doesn't feel harsh, just honest. He looks at you gently, and his voice breaks through the stillness like a slow-moving stream. All beings know suffering, he says. It is the thread that connects every living heart. You feel that, not dramatically, but in a quiet, yeah, that's real kind of way. Suffering is something you've carried, something everyone you've ever known has carried. It's universal, not a punishment, not a failure, just part of being alive. The Buddha draws a small circle in the soil with his fingertip. Pain, loss, disappointment, confusion, these visit everyone. Even when we try so hard to avoid them, they find their way through. His gesture is soft, but the message lands gently in your chest. You breathe out, feeling memories flicker through your mind. Times you were overwhelmed, times life felt heavier than you knew how to handle, times you didn't have the tools or clarity to make sense of what you were going through. For a second, it stings, then it softens. The Buddha watches your expression with compassion rather than pity. Suffering is not here to shame you, he says quietly. It is here to be understood. He picks up a single fallen leaf from the ground, turning it over in his hand. Like this leaf, he continues. If you do not look closely, you see only the surface. But look deeper, and you find the patterns, the veins, the pathways that make it what it is. He hands the leaf to you. It's delicate, its veins branching like tiny rivers. For the first time, you notice how much complexity lies in something so small. Suffering has its patterns too, the Buddha says. It has causes. And when we see those causes clearly, we loosen suffering's hold on us. You close your hand gently around the leaf, not holding it tightly, but simply acknowledging its presence. The Buddha nods approvingly. There are 3 roots of suffering, he explains: craving, aversion, and ignorance. These are the seeds from which pain grows. He points toward the forest. Craving pulls you toward what you do not have. Aversion pushes you away from what you do have. Ignorance blinds you to what is true in this moment. You let those words sink in slowly. Craving, aversion, ignorance. 3 small words that somehow describe so much of the human experience. Wanting what isn't here. Rejecting what is here. Not fully understanding either one. These roots live in every heart, the Buddha continues. But they are not who you are. They are simply habits the mind learns. He pauses, letting the night air fill the space between you. The clearing feels even more still now, as if the stars themselves are leaning in to listen. When we suffer, the Buddha says softly, we often believe we are broken. But suffering only means we are human. There's something comforting in the simplicity of that. Suffering doesn't make you flawed. It makes you part of the world. The Buddha reaches down and presses his palm to the earth. Just as the roots of a tree grow in darkness, he says, the roots of suffering grow where we do not look. You follow his gaze downward, imagining the tangle of roots beneath the soil, hidden, powerful, shaping everything above them. To see the roots, he explains, is to begin freeing yourself. You inhale deeply, the cool night air filling your lungs. The idea of understanding suffering, not running from it, not blaming yourself for it, feels strangely liberating, like you've been carrying something heavy without knowing why, and now you finally have a map to understand its weight. The Buddha's voice softens even more. There is no need to fear this truth. You are not being asked to confront your pain alone. You are simply being invited to see it clearly, with compassion. The clearing grows quiet again. A few fireflies drift near the edges, their soft glow flickering like tiny lanterns guiding the way. And once you see suffering clearly, the Buddha continues, you can begin to see the desires that feed it. Desire, craving, that subtle ache inside that always reaches for something else, something next, something more. The Buddha turns toward the winding path that leads deeper into the forest. Come, he says gently. Now that you understand suffering, it is time to understand the craving that forms its first root. And with that, the night guides you onward. The path opens into a quiet field illuminated by moonlight, the grass rippling in waves like a silver ocean. The Buddha stops in the center, his robe settling around him as the breeze softens. He lifts his hand and snaps a single dry twig from a nearby bush. When he rubs it between his fingers, tiny flakes fall away like sparks. Craving, he says, is like this dry wood, always ready to burn. He drops the twig to the ground, and you watch as it settles into the grass. Simple, ordinary. But the metaphor lands. Craving really does feel like something that catches quickly, spreading faster than you expect. The Buddha gestures toward the sky. Imagine a fire, he continues, one that never stops asking for fuel. No matter how much you give it, it demands more. You picture it instantly, a flame rising, consuming, never satisfied, the kind of wanting that keeps you restless, uneasy, always reaching. You've known that feeling. Everyone has. Craving begins with the belief that something outside you will complete what is inside you, he explains. A hope that the next thing will finally be enough. The next achievement, the next relationship, the next purchase, the next version of yourself you think will finally fix everything. Yeah, you know that cycle. The Buddha kneels in the grass and begins drawing a circle again, just as he did earlier. Craving is a loop, he says. When you obtain what you want, satisfaction arises, but only briefly. Soon the mind wants again. Something new, something more. He taps the circle, and so the cycle continues. You've lived that cycle before. Excitement, fulfillment, fading, emptiness, searching. It's exhausting, even when the things you chase aren't bad in themselves, just endless. The Buddha's voice softens. Craving is not evil, he says. It is simply misunderstood. It promises happiness, but brings only temporary relief, like drinking salty water when you are thirsty. That comparison hits hard. You've felt that before, wanting something so badly, only to realize it didn't help like you thought it would. The Buddha continues. Craving grasps, it tightens, it clings. He closes his fist slowly, demonstrating the grip of desire. When you hold tightly, your hand cannot receive. He opens his hand again, relaxed, open, empty. But when you loosen the grasp, you create space for peace. It's strange how obvious yet personal the teaching feels. You feel the tension in your own chest, the subtle clenching that comes from wanting life to be different than it is. Craving arises from a belief he says, a belief that happiness exists somewhere in the future, once the right conditions appear. The Buddha looks directly into your eyes, his gaze steady and calm. But real peace is not found in the future. It is found in the heart that no longer chases. You breathe out slowly, feeling something inside you loosen, not fully, but enough to notice. The Buddha rises and walks toward a small patch of wildflowers. Some bloom beautifully, others droop, their petals browning. He touches both with equal gentleness. When you seek only what is pleasant, he says, you suffer when life shifts. He brushes a dying petal. When you reject what is unpleasant, you suffer again. He turns his palm upward. But when you meet each moment as it is, craving begins to lose its power. You let your hand hover over a wilted flower. It's fragile, delicate, imperfect, yet holding a quiet beauty you wouldn't have noticed before. The Buddha watches you with a faint smile. Craving distracts you from seeing what is already here. A distant breeze rolls across the field, cool and refreshing. The grass sways like a massive tide. The world feels fuller when you're not busy reaching for something else. The Buddha steps beside you. Do not blame yourself for craving, he says. Do not shame yourself. Simply understand it. See how it rises, how it falls, how it never stays. You nod softly. Understanding feels lighter than judgment. When you see craving clearly, the Buddha adds, you can begin to set it down, not by force, but through wisdom. The moonlight glows brighter for a moment, illuminating the path leading out of the field, a path shaded by soft branches and moving toward deeper stillness. The Buddha motions gently toward it. Come, he says, now that you understand the fire, it is time to learn how to let go of the fuel. And with that, he guides you toward the next teaching, the art of release. The stream winds gently through the forest, carving a quiet path between smooth stones. You kneel beside the Buddha, feeling the cool mist settle lightly on your skin. The water moves with an ease that feels almost unreal, never clinging, never resisting, simply flowing. The Buddha reaches down and cups his hand beneath the surface, lifting a small pool of water into his palm. Watch, he says softly. The water slips through the gaps in his fingers, returning to the stream in a thin, shimmering line. Within seconds, his hand is empty. This is the nature of all things we try to hold, the Buddha explains. The tighter we grasp, the more quickly they slip away. You try it yourself. You scoop up a handful of water, instinctively tightening your fingers to keep it in place. But the harder you try, the faster it escapes you. When you finally loosen your hand, the water remains for just a moment longer, resting gently before rejoining the stream. The Buddha nods. What is meant to stay will stay. What is meant to flow will flow. You sit back on your heels, letting that settle inside you. How many things have you clenched your mind around? Relationships, expectations, memories, hopes, mistakes, believing that holding on was the only way to keep them from slipping away. And how many times has that grip only caused you more pain? The Buddha dips his fingers into the stream and watches the ripples spread outward. Non-attachment, he says, is not the absence of love. It is the absence of fear. You look at him, unsure at first. He senses the question in your silence. You do not let go because you do not care, he continues. You let go because you finally understand you cannot own what is alive. A leaf floats by on the surface of the stream, spinning gently in the current. You follow its path until it disappears around a bend. No struggle, no resistance, no anxiety over where it drifts next. Attachment, the Buddha explains, is the belief that you must control the leaf. Non-attachment is trusting the river. You breathe out, and the forest seems to breathe with you. There's a subtle release in your chest, the loosening of something you've carried for far too long. The Buddha picks up a smooth stone from the riverbank, turning it slowly in his hand. Life places many things in your palm, he says. People, moments, dreams, experiences. You may hold them gently, appreciate them, learn from them. He opens his hand, letting the stone rest on his palm. But you must not close your fist around them. He lets the stone roll back into the stream with a soft clink, disappearing beneath the surface. When you cling, he says, you suffer. When you release, you see clearly. You glance at the water again. Its clarity is striking. You can see the stones beneath, glowing softly under the moonlight. The Buddha follows your gaze. Attachment clouds the mind, he says, like mud stirred from the bottom of the river. But when you let go, the water settles. You begin to see truth again. You feel that truth ripple through you. Letting go isn't losing. It's clearing space. It's laying down a weight you weren't meant to carry forever. The Buddha closes his eyes briefly, breathing in the cool night air. Ask yourself, he says, what are you gripping so tightly that it hurts to hold? You feel the question more than you think it. Something inside you shifts. Maybe the answer isn't clear yet. Maybe it's still forming. But you can already sense the loosening beginning. When you release, the Buddha says, you do not become empty. You become open. You feel his words sink deeper. Open. There's something peaceful about that. Something honest. A soft breeze stirs the water again, sending delicate ripples across the surface. Not sharp, not chaotic, just gentle reminders that nothing stays solid for long. And somehow, that doesn't feel scary right now. It feels freeing. The Buddha rises slowly, motioning toward a path illuminated by the reflection of the moon, dancing on the stream. Now that you know how to let go, he says, come learn what clarity reveals once the grasping stops. His voice is steady, warm, like the flow of the river itself. You stand, breathe in deeply, and follow him. The night continues forward. The clearing stretches out before you, bathed in silver light. The grass is short and soft, swaying only slightly in the evening breeze. Everything feels open here, spacious, calm, uncomplicated. The Buddha steps into the center of the clearing and you follow, noticing how the night seems to glow, just a little brighter around him. When the mind stops grasping, he begins, it becomes like a polished mirror, able to reflect truth without distortion. You lower yourself into the grass. The earth feels warm beneath you, and somehow that warmth settles into your chest as well. There's a lightness there now, a quiet spaciousness that wasn't present before. Letting go has created room, and now this room feels ready for something new. The Buddha kneels beside you and smooths a patch of grass with his hand. Clarity is not something you force, he says. It appears when the clouds of attachment begin to drift away. He lifts his hand to the sky, and a thin cloud passes over the moon before drifting aside. The clearing brightens instantly, illuminated again. The metaphor is simple, but it hits deep. Your mind has been that cloud for so long, or maybe you've been holding on to it, afraid of what might happen if you let it pass. When you release what you cling to, the Buddha continues, the mind becomes free to see what has always been here. You take a slow breath. The air tastes different, lighter, cleaner. You didn't even realize how much craving fogged your perception until now. It's like wiping a smudged lens and suddenly seeing the shapes and details that were always there, but never fully visible. The Buddha gathers a handful of small pebbles and lets them slip slowly from his palm. They fall with a soft patter, scattering into the soil. When the mind clings, he says, everything becomes tangled. When it releases, everything falls into place. You close your eyes briefly. There's a clarity in your breathing now, a rhythm that feels natural instead of effortful. Thoughts still arise, but they're softer, lighter, almost transparent. Instead of dragging you around, they drift gently like small clouds moving across the sky. The Buddha watches you with a quiet smile. Peace is the natural state of the mind, he says. Suffering is what happens when we cover that state with fear and desire. You open your eyes, and the clearing looks sharper than before. Colors seem richer, shadows softer, the air more spacious. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, but real. A kind of simple, grounded clarity. When release happens, the Buddha explains, you see the world without the filters you once carried. You see others with compassion. You see yourself with gentleness. You see life with understanding. He stands, and you rise with him, feeling surprisingly steady on your feet. As he walks slowly around the clearing, he gestures to the path you've already taken, the pool, the field, the grove. Each moment of release clears another layer, he says. You begin to see your motivations, your fears, your patterns, not as faults, but as conditions that can change. He pauses and looks at you, his expression full of softness. Clarity is the beginning of wisdom. You feel that truth settle inside you, warm and steady. Wisdom isn't about being perfect or always calm. It's about seeing your life with honesty instead of illusion. It's about recognizing what helps you grow and what keeps you stuck. The Buddha steps closer, lowering his voice just slightly. But clarity is delicate at first, he says. It must be supported by wholesome qualities, compassion, patience, discipline, and kindness. You nod, understanding. Without nourishing these qualities, clarity could fade again, swallowed up by the old habits of craving and fear. He points toward a narrow path that winds between the trees at the far end of the clearing. Now that your mind has begun to clear, he says, you can begin cultivating the qualities that help it stay bright. The wind picks up gently, rustling the leaves along the path like a soft welcome. The Buddha steps forward. Come, he says, it is time to learn how compassion grows from a clear heart. And with that, you move toward the next lesson, ready to nurture what clarity has revealed. You and the Buddha step into a small grove filled with pale blossoms glowing under the moonlight. The petals shimmer like tiny lanterns, their fragrance subtle and comforting. The Buddha kneels beside one of the blossoms and rests his fingertips lightly against it, careful not to disturb its delicate shape. Compassion, he begins, is the natural fragrance of a heart that understands. He lifts the flower gently and places it into your hands. Its petals are soft, fragile, impossibly light, so easy to bruise if held with anything but care. As you cradle it, something inside you shifts, reacting instinctively to the flower's vulnerability. This tenderness you feel, the Buddha says, is compassion. It arises when you recognize the shared fragility of all beings. You look at the tiny blossom. Somehow, its delicateness reminds you of yourself, of all the moments in your life when you felt overwhelmed, scared, unsure, or hurting. And without warning, compassion for your own heart stirs quietly, like a small flame flickering to life. The Buddha watches you with understanding. Before compassion can flow outward, he says, it must first be offered inward. You let that land. It's surprisingly hard to be gentle with yourself, much easier to critique, to push, to strive, to tell yourself you should have known better. But compassion doesn't speak that language. Compassion speaks softly, like the petals in your hands. The Buddha sits beneath one of the blossom trees, and you join him. Many people believe compassion makes them weak, he says. But it is compassion that gives the heart its greatest strength. He places his palm over his heart. When you open yourself to suffering, not to drown in it, but to understand it, you grow more capable of love, patience, and forgiveness. He pauses, letting silence settle gently between his words. Compassion does not judge, he continues. It simply sees. You breathe in the flower's faint scent and feel your chest soften even more. Images of times you were hard on yourself rise uninvited, not to shame you, but almost as if your heart is offering them up to be held with more tenderness this time. The Buddha's voice returns, steady and warm. Imagine every person you meet as someone carrying an invisible bundle of burdens, fears, losses, hopes, wounds. When you see this truth, compassion arises naturally. He gestures toward the grove. In the shifting moonlight, every flower seems to glow with the same quiet vulnerability you held in your hands. The metaphor is clear. We're all like this, delicate, growing, trying. When someone acts with anger, he says, they are usually protecting a hurt they cannot name. When someone acts with greed, they are trying to fill an emptiness they do not understand. When someone acts with cruelty, they are drowning in their own suffering. He looks at you. Compassion sees the suffering beneath the behavior. You let those words sink in, noticing how they soften your view of others, even the difficult ones, even the ones you've struggled with. It doesn't excuse harmful actions, but it does open a space inside you that feels gentler, less reactive, more understanding. Compassion, the Buddha says, is the bridge that connects your heart to the hearts of others. He lifts another blossom from the ground and lets it drop gently into the stream that winds through the grove. You watch as it floats gracefully, its reflection shimmering on the water's surface. Compassion flows, he says. It is not forced. It is allowed. You sit quietly, sensing the warmth growing inside your chest, a kind of soft radiance that feels both grounding and uplifting. It's not dramatic, not overwhelming, just steady, real. When you meet your own pain with compassion, the Buddha adds, you no longer run from it. When you meet the pain of another with compassion, you no longer fear it. He looks toward a path lined by glowing lanterns, leading deeper into the grove. His expression brightens. And when compassion becomes stable, he says, it opens the door to something even more powerful, the boundless warmth of loving kindness. The lantern-lit path seems to shimmer with possibility, the next teaching already calling gently. The Buddha rises, offering you a peaceful nod. Come, he says. Let your compassion grow into a light that touches all beings, and with that, you step forward into the glow of the next lesson. The clearing opens around you like a bowl of warm light. Lanterns hang from low branches, their flames swaying with a steadiness that feels almost alive. The glow they cast isn't harsh or bright. It's gentle, golden, the kind of light that makes everything it touches seem softer. You step toward the center, and the Buddha motions for you to sit. The moment you lower yourself into the warm grass, you can feel that gentle radiance brushing against your skin, settling deeper with every inhale. Loving kindness, the Buddha begins, is the heart's natural light. It asks for nothing. It shines simply because it is free. He places a hand over his chest, and you do the same almost instinctively. Beneath your palm, your heartbeat feels steadier than before. Warmer too, like compassion from the last chapter has begun to glow, instead of simply rest. Close your eyes, he says softly, and you do. The world narrows to breath, warmth, and the sense of the Buddha's presence beside you. The lantern light flickers gently behind your eyelids, painting the darkness with gold. Bring to mind someone you love, he says, someone who makes your heart soften easily. A face appears in your mind, maybe a friend, a family member, someone who cared for you during a hard moment, or someone whose laugh always makes things feel lighter. Whoever it is, their presence in your chest feels warm, comforting, familiar. The Buddha's voice becomes even quieter, as if speaking to the deepest part of you. Offer them this wish. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. You repeat the words silently as you do. That warmth in your chest expands, like a flame growing just enough to illuminate more of the darkness. This light you feel, the Buddha continues, is not imagination. It is the heart remembering itself. You breathe slowly. The feeling grows, not overwhelmingly, but steadily, like coals warming under soft breath. Now, he says, let this warmth spread to those you know less closely. Acquaintances, strangers, the people you pass without noticing. You picture them, the cashier, the neighbor, the co-worker, the faces in crowds. People who live whole lives behind their silence, carrying joys and burdens you'll never fully know. Offer them the same wish, he says. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. The warmth grows outward, expanding gently, like a ripple across still water. This, the Buddha says, is the light of loving kindness, not limited by closeness, not controlled by preference. You breathe again, feeling that expanding circle of warmth moving further outward, reaching people you'll never meet. The feeling isn't grand or dramatic. It's simple, grounded, real. But then the Buddha's voice shifts slightly, gaining a subtle firmness. Now, he says, bring to mind someone who has caused you difficulty, someone you resist, someone you tense against. Your chest tightens at the thought. Not drastically, but enough to notice. The warmth dims a little, replaced by the familiar tension that comes with remembering pain, conflict, or misunderstanding. The Buddha opens his eyes and looks at you gently. Loving kindness does not deny hurt, he says. It simply chooses not to return it. He pauses, letting the truth settle. You are not asked to forget, he continues. You are not asked to pretend. You are only asked to see this person as a human being who suffers just as you do. Your breath softens. The tension loosens, not all the way, but enough for light to seep back in. Offer them the same wish, he says slowly, even if your heart trembles while doing it. So you try. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. You don't force it. You don't pretend it feels easy. But even the smallest sincerity creates a spark, a tiny glow that is real, honest, and healing. The Buddha nods with quiet approval. The heart grows strongest, he says, when it learns to shine even where it once closed. The lantern flames sway, reflecting that truth in their warm, steady glow. Loving kindness, he says, is not about perfection. It is about direction. A heart that turns toward warmth, even slightly, grows brighter with every step. He rises and looks toward a narrow path, leading deeper into the forest. A path dimmer, quieter, carrying the faint echo of unresolved emotions. For now, he says gently, you have learned how love expands. Next, you will learn how it meets the difficult places inside you, and the journey moves forward into the heart's more challenging terrain. The grove you enter is dimmer than the previous ones, not unfriendly, but quieter, almost like a place built for reflection rather than comfort. Moss blankets the stones beneath your feet, and the air carries a muted chill. You sit beside the Buddha on a smooth rock, the silence around you thick enough to feel. He rests his hands in his lap and takes a slow breath. All hearts know hurt, he begins, and all hearts struggle to hold softness in the face of that hurt. You feel that truth strike something inside you, a familiar place where old wounds still echo. The Buddha watches your expression shift and nods with gentle understanding. When someone harms you, he says, your heart tightens. It curls inward, protecting itself from further pain. This is natural. This is human. He lifts his hand, curling his fingers into a small fist. But if the heart remains closed, suffering deepens. The pain becomes a story the mind repeats again and again. He slowly uncurls his hand, Softness does not erase the hurt. It simply allows the wound to breathe. You sit with that for a moment. The idea feels both soothing and challenging. Softness isn't about pretending you're fine or ignoring what happened. It's about making space for healing instead of forcing the wound to stay open. The Buddha leans forward slightly. Forgiveness, he says, is not a gift you give to the one who harmed you. It is a release you offer to yourself. He lifts a fallen leaf from the ground, brown, brittle, fragile. Holding resentment is like gripping a dying leaf, he continues. The tighter you hold it, the more it crumbles in your hand. He lets the leaf fall, and it drifts gently to the ground. Release is not about approving their action. It is about freeing your own heart from their shadow. You inhale slowly, feeling how tightly you've held certain memories, certain hurts, certain names. The grip isn't obvious until you look directly at it. The Buddha looks up at the canopy above you. Forgiveness grows slowly, he says. It begins with the simple willingness to soften. He gestures toward your chest. Not for them, for you. You notice your breath trembling slightly, not from fear, but from something stirring beneath the surface. Something that's been waiting for this permission for a long time. The Buddha continues, compassion for those who hurt you does not mean letting them near. It does not mean removing boundaries. It means seeing their humanity without surrendering your safety. He draws a line in the moss with his fingertip. A boundary, he explains, is a path that protects peace. It does not close the heart. It simply guides harmful energy away. You think of the times you confused forgiveness with weakness, or softness with vulnerability. But the Buddha's teachings reshape that belief. Softness now feels like strength that doesn't rely on hardness. He lifts his gaze to meet yours. Behind every harmful action is suffering, he says, a mind clouded by fear, ignorance, or unhealed wounds. He pauses, giving the truth space. Seeing their suffering does not excuse their behavior, but it frees you from carrying their pain as your own. You breathe in again, the air cooler but not cold. Something subtle shifts inside you, a loosening that feels both new and overdue. The Buddha guides you to place your hand over your heart. Offer yourself this truth, he says gently. I do not need to carry what hurt me. I can lay it down. You repeat it silently. Each repetition feels like unclenching a part of your chest. Then, softly, he adds, and when you are ready, not today, not forced, offer them this wish. May you one day find the wisdom that prevents harm. There is no pressure in his voice, no expectation, just an invitation to one day lighten the load. The forest around you grows still, as if honoring the weight and relief of the moment. The wound inside you doesn't vanish, but it feels tended to, acknowledged, held with kindness instead of hardness. The Buddha rises slowly, brushing moss from his robe. Softness toward those who hurt you, he says, creates room in the heart for deeper truths. He steps toward a darker corner of the grove, where a faint red glow pulses like embers hidden beneath wood. And now, he continues, let us look at the flame that often follows hurt, the flame of anger. You stand, steady and grounded, ready to face the next teaching as the path leads you toward that quiet fire. The embers before you glow with a deep, living red, their heat rising in soft waves. They are not wild flames, just the lingering fire that remains when something has burned for a long time. The Buddha kneels beside the pit, his expression steady and untroubled, as if he sees not danger, but a lesson waiting to be understood. Anger, he begins, is a flame the heart holds. It promises protection, but burns the one who grasps it. You sit with that, watching the embers pulse like quiet breathing. Anger has never felt like a flame to you, more like a reaction, a tension, a tightening. But here, in the glow of the coals, the comparison becomes sharper. Something inside you recognizes the heat of past frustrations, the rush of old arguments, the simmering irritation that hides behind polite silence. The Buddha picks up a small branch and places it gently on the embers. The branch smokes for a moment before catching fire along its edge. The flame is thin, unsteady, but real. Anger always begins small, he says. A spark of hurt, a spark of fear, a spark of misunderstanding. The flame licks at the wood, growing brighter. If we feed it with thoughts, with judgment, with stories, it grows. You watch the flame rise, almost hypnotic in the quiet night. The fire doesn't leap violently. It grows steadily, reaching higher with every second. It's unsettling how familiar that feels. With anger, the Buddha continues, we believe we are protecting ourselves, but the flame does not know friend from foe. It burns whatever it touches, especially the one who holds it close. He lets the flaming branch drop, and it lands among the embers with a soft hiss. The fire clings to it stubbornly before slowly dimming. Most people fear anger because they misunderstand it, he says. Anger is not evil. It is a signal, a messenger, telling you where pain lives inside you. You blink, absorbing that. Anger as a messenger, not an enemy. That idea eases the tightness in your chest. The Buddha stands and motions for you to follow him a few steps away from the ember pit. He points to a pool of water beside the grove, still, cool, reflecting the moon with silent brightness. This is the mind when anger is not present, he says, clear, reflective, capable of seeing truth. Then he walks back to the embers. And this is the mind when anger takes hold, he adds, stirring the coals lightly with a stick. The red glow brightens instantly. Heat rises, vision blurs, sound sharpens, judgment tightens. The world becomes smaller, harder, more dangerous. You feel a pang of recognition. You've known that version of your mind. The one that reacts before you can think. The one that assumes the worst. The one that wants to protect, but ends up hurting. Anger asks for understanding, the Buddha says, not suppression, not indulgence, understanding. He gestures for you to kneel again. You do, feeling the warmth of the embers against your skin. To cool the flame, he explains, the first step is to pause. A pause is like the wind. It gives the fire space to soften. He closes his eyes briefly, taking a slow breath. You mimic the gesture, inhaling deeply. The smoky scent fills your lungs, grounding you. The second step, he continues, is to look inward. Ask the flame, what are you protecting? What wound are you guarding? You try it. A memory rises, not with force, but naturally. You feel the familiar heat behind it, the anger that once came with it. But now, watching the embers, the heat feels less personal, more understandable. Less like an identity, more like an old reaction. The Buddha speaks again, gently. When you see the hurt beneath the anger, the flame loses its fuel. He picks up a handful of cool earth beside him, and lets it fall over the embers. The coals hiss softly, the red glow dimming in patches. Cooling anger does not mean denying it, he says. It means meeting it with clarity instead of fear. You breathe out. The cooling embers mirror something inside you. The soft dimming of resentment, the loosening of old tightness. Anger becomes harmless, he says, when the heart learns to understand its cause. The last ember fades from bright red to dull orange, then to gray. And when the flame has softened, he continues, you are ready to learn balance. The middle way that steadies the mind even when emotions rise. He stands and looks toward a gently sloping path leading upward, where the air feels lighter and the ground smoother beneath the moonlight. Come, he says warmly, let us walk into balance. The hillside is quiet, bathed in a gentle silver glow. There is no wind, no sharp sound, just the soft presence of the earth beneath you and the sky stretching endlessly above. The Buddha sits at the center of the hill, and the symmetry of the scene feels intentional, almost symbolic. You join him, settling into the cool grass that supports you with effortless ease. The middle way, the Buddha begins, is the path between extremes. It is the art of not leaning too far in any direction. He draws a line in the grass with his fingertip, simple, straight, calm. Most suffering, he says softly, arises when the mind tilts. Too much desire, too much fear, too much avoidance, too much control. You glance at the line. Something about its simplicity feels grounding. Suffering doesn't come from life itself. It often comes from how tightly you pull yourself toward one side or the other. The Buddha picks up a smooth pebble and places it in the center of his palm. He tilts his hand slightly, and the pebble rolls toward the edge. When we lean toward craving, he says, we lose balance. He tilts the other way, and the pebble rolls again. When we lean toward aversion, we lose balance. Then he holds his hand level. The pebble rests perfectly in the middle. But when the mind becomes steady, he says, clarity appears. You feel a resonance inside your chest. Not a revelation, but a quiet yes. You've lived through both extremes. Reaching too hard, rejecting too fast, gripping too tight, pushing things away. It's exhausting, but the idea of balance feels peaceful. The middle way is not about doing nothing, the Buddha continues. It is about doing what brings steady peace rather than temporary escape. He gestures toward the sky, where the moon glows bright but gentle. Balance does not shout. It does not rush. It does not grasp. It simply rests in what is. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the idea sink into the space behind your ribs. The word rest feels different here. Not lazy, not passive, just aligned. Whenever your mind becomes emotional, the Buddha says gently, it tries to convince you that your feeling is the whole truth. The middle way reminds you that emotions are passing clouds, not the sky. He taps the earth beside him. The sky does not chase clouds. The sky does not fear storms. The sky simply allows. You open your eyes again. The moonlit hillside really does resemble a wide-open sky. Spacious, calm, holding everything without resistance. The Buddha stands and walks a short distance, motioning for you to follow. Look, he says, pointing to a small sapling growing in a patch of soil. The sapling bends gently in the breeze, neither stiff nor limp. This tree survives because it bends, he says, too rigid, and it would break. Too loose, and it would collapse. Balance keeps it alive. You take in the simple wisdom of it. Maybe balance isn't about perfection. Maybe it's about adaptability, not letting emotions, circumstances, or desires pull you too far in any direction. To find the middle way within, the Buddha continues, you must listen to your own mind. Notice when it tightens. Notice when it pulls. Notice when it collapses. He places a hand over his heart. Balance begins here, with noticing. You try it. You let your awareness move inward, noticing small tensions, a tightness in your shoulders, a subtle pressure in your chest, a lingering restlessness. The moment you acknowledge them, they soften a little, like the body is relieved to finally be seen. The Buddha nods approvingly. When the mind learns to observe itself with honesty, imbalance dissolves. He steps back onto the center of the hillside, the moon centered above him once more. And balance, he says, makes wise choices possible. You feel something shift inside, a gentle click, like gears aligning. Wisdom isn't born from force or from running to extremes. It comes from steady presence. Remember, the Buddha says quietly, the middle way is not a single point. It is a practice, a returning, a gentle recalibration every day. You breathe slowly, letting that truth settle into the deepest parts of you. The Buddha then looks toward a winding pathway at the far end of the hill, calm, even, leading into a grove illuminated by soft moonlight. Now that balance has been introduced, he says, you are ready to learn how mindful decisions shape your path. He begins walking toward the grove, his steps neither rushed nor delayed. You rise and follow, steady and centered, ready for the next teaching. The fireflies drift slowly through the grove, their soft pulses of light illuminating the shapes of the trees around you. The glow creates a kind of intimate space, warm, quiet, reflective. You sit across from the Buddha beneath a wide branching tree, its leaves shimmering gently in the shifting light. Every moment, he begins, contains a choice. Most are small. Many are unseen, but they shape the direction of your life more deeply than you realize. You feel the truth of that immediately. So many of your choices, what you say, what you buy, how you react, what you avoid, aren't decisions you make consciously. They're patterns, habits, automatic motions of a mind that rarely slows down enough to notice itself. The Buddha reaches into the grass and picks up a single firefly resting on a leaf. It glows softly in his palm. Awareness turns habits into choices, he says. When you become aware, you begin to live on purpose. He gently blows on the firefly, and it lifts into the air, drifting toward the treetops. Let us begin with intention, he continues. Every action begins in the heart. Before it becomes movement or speech, you sit with that. How many times have you spoken out of impulse, eaten out of distraction, reacted out of fear? The Buddha watches your reflection quietly forming. Conscious living, he says, means pausing long enough to ask, why am I doing this? Not with judgment, not with pressure, just with clarity. He gestures toward a small basket of fruit resting beneath the tree, simple offerings left by travelers before you. He takes a piece of fruit, holds it in both hands, and looks at it as if it were the most ordinary and precious thing at once. When you choose what to eat, he says, ask yourself, does this bring nourishment? Does this support clarity? Does this create peace in my body? He places the fruit back in the basket. Eating is not merely consumption. It is the way you plant seeds of energy within yourself. You nod, realizing how often you've eaten to fill an emotion instead of fuel the body. How often you've used food as comfort, distraction, or escape. Then the Buddha continues, and when you choose how to speak, ask yourself, does this create connection or division? Does this build or destroy? His tone becomes warm but pointed, not defensive, not accusing, just honest. Words shape the world, he says. A single sentence can heal or harm. A single tone can open a heart or close one. You think of the times you've spoken quickly, defensively, or sharply. Times when your words hurt more than you intended. And the times when someone else's words stayed with you for years. Speech becomes conscious, the Buddha explains, when you choose honesty without cruelty, kindness without falsehood, clarity without blame. He lets the silence settle between you before continuing. And when you choose your actions, he says, ask, does this bring me closer to peace or further away? Does this honor my values or betray them? He lifts a fallen branch from the ground and breaks it gently in half. Many people break themselves, he says, not through one great mistake, but through 1,000 small unconscious ones. You swallow, recognizing pieces of yourself in that truth. Your life hasn't been shaped by dramatic choices. It's been shaped by the countless tiny ones you barely noticed. The Buddha places the broken branch aside and touches the earth with the tips of his fingers. Grounded choices come from a grounded mind, he says. This is why balance is essential. He pauses, looking at you with warmth. Not expectation, not pressure, just the quiet belief that you are capable of more awareness than you have ever given yourself credit for. When you live consciously, he says, your life becomes aligned. Your body, your speech, your mind, all move in the same direction. A firefly lands on your knee, glowing softly. You watch its light pulse, gentle and rhythmic. The Buddha smiles. Conscious living is not perfection, he says. It is returning to intention, returning to awareness, returning to choice. He rises slowly, his robe brushing softly against the grass. And now, he says, you are ready to learn one of the most powerful choices you can make, the choice of how you speak. He motions toward a narrow path, glowing faintly at its edges. Come, let us walk into the heart of mindful speech. The grove shifts as you stand to follow him, the fireflies lighting the way toward the next teaching. The clearing is still, wrapped in a soft quietness that feels almost sacred. The moonlight settles on the ground in pale silver patches, and the Buddha sits where the light touches the earth, inviting you to settle beside him. You feel the shift instantly. This space was made for honesty, the gentle kind, the kind that doesn't wound but reveals. Speech, the Buddha begins, is one of the most powerful actions you take each day. It can wound deeply, or it can heal in ways nothing else can. You nod, thinking of times in your life when someone's words lifted you up, and other times when a careless sentence lingered in your chest for years. Words might seem light, but they carry weight long after they're spoken. The Buddha lifts a smooth stone from the ground, and places it in your hand. Words are like stones, he says. You may toss them without intention, but they land somewhere. They land on someone. You turn the stone over in your palm. It's cool, small, deceptively harmless. Just like a thoughtless comment, a sarcastic remark, or a frustrated outburst can seem small, but still land hard. Right speech, the Buddha says, is speech that creates no harm. He holds up one finger. First, speak honestly, but his tone is gentle, not stern. Honesty is not a weapon. It is clarity, offered with care. You think of moments where you used honesty to defend a harsh truth, not noticing the pain you left behind, and moments where you softened the truth so much that it lost its purpose. True honesty, the Buddha continues, is neither blunt nor diluted. It is spoken with awareness of the heart you are speaking to. He raises a second finger. Second, speak gently. He looks toward the trees, where the leaves sway softly in the night breeze. Gentleness is not weakness. It is strength wrapped in kindness. You breathe in slowly. There is a quiet correctness to that. Anyone can speak with force. Only the grounded can speak with kindness. And third, he says, raising the final finger, speak only what is useful. The word hangs in the air for a moment. Useful, not impulsive, not indulgent, not meant to prove anything. Useful. Before you speak, the Buddha says, ask yourself, does this help? Not, do I want to say it? But, will it bring clarity, peace, or understanding? You feel something shift in your chest, a quiet recognition of how many times words were spoken simply because they were ready, not because they were helpful. He leans slightly closer. When words do not help, silence is not emptiness, it is compassion. The clearing seems to exhale at that sentence. Even the trees seem to lean in. The Buddha places your stone back on the earth. Most people do not intend to cause harm, he says, but unconsidered speech becomes harm without meaning to. He pauses, watching your face. Healing speech begins with listening. You blink. Listening? He nods. To speak wisely, he explains, you must know the heart of the one before you. Listen to their fears, their pauses, their confusion, their hope. Words spoken without listening are like seeds tossed into stone. The fireflies drift near the edge of the clearing, their small lights flickering like quiet affirmation. The Buddha continues, when you listen deeply, your words arise naturally, not from ego, not from reaction, but from understanding. He touches his chest lightly. Then words become medicine. You imagine the ways your life could have shifted if certain conversations had been held with listening instead of defensiveness. So many arguments might have softened. So many misunderstandings might have dissolved before they hardened into resentment. The Buddha lifts his gaze toward the path beyond the clearing. Words can heal wounds you cannot see, he says, but healing speech is a choice you must make again and again. Your breath deepens. It feels like something inside you is realigning, like your voice itself is being rewoven into something steadier, kinder, clearer. The Buddha stands, brushing his robe lightly as he rises. When your speech causes no harm, he says, your actions begin to follow the same path. He turns toward a trail that winds gently between the trees, lit faintly by moonlight. Now, he says warmly, let us walk into the teaching of right action, how to move through the world with the same care you bring to your words. And with that, the forest guides you toward the next chapter, one step at a time. You lower yourself onto one of the smooth stones, feeling its cool surface press lightly against your legs. The night air around you seems to still, waiting for the lesson to unfold. The Buddha sits across from you, his posture relaxed, grounded, and open, a living example of the very peace he teaches. Actions, he begins, are the footprints of your intentions. Every step you take leaves an imprint on your own heart and on the world. He picks up a small stick from the ground and draws a line in the soil. This, he says, is the path of peaceful action. He draws another line beside it, jagged, uneven, scattered. And this is the path of unexamined action, action born from impulse, fear, or selfishness. The contrast between the two lines is striking. One is clear, steady, purposeful, the other, chaotic. The Buddha sets the stick aside. Right action, he says, does not require perfection. It requires awareness. He lifts his hand and cups it around a nearby firefly. When he opens his palm, the insect glows softly before drifting upward. Look at this being, he says gently. Small, delicate, living its brief life with no desire to harm. He smiles. When your actions are guided by the intention to cause no harm, to yourself or to others, you walk the path of peace. The words settle into your chest. They feel simple, but profound. How many decisions in your life have been shaped by stress rather than care? By fear instead of clarity? By habit instead of intention? Most harm, the Buddha continues, is not done from cruelty. It is done from unawareness, from a moment of carelessness, from forgetting to see the humanity in those around you. He picks up a fallen leaf, dry, brittle, fragile. He crushes it lightly between his fingers, and it crumbles into dust. A single, thoughtless action, he says, can break something fragile, a heart, a trust, a chance. He lets the pieces drop gently to the soil. But a conscious action, he adds, can restore, rebuild, or protect. He reaches for a small seed resting on the ground, left behind by a nearby tree. He places it lightly in your hand. Planting a seed, he says, symbolizes right action, something small, something humble, but with time and care, it creates life. You hold the seed carefully, feeling its tiny weight. It's astonishing how something so small can hold the potential for growth. Right action, he says, is choosing not to harm, choosing to help, choosing integrity even when no one is watching. He raises his gaze to meet yours. It is choosing to be the person you hope the world can become. You take a slow breath. There is a clarity forming, a recognition that right action isn't about heroic gestures. It's about everyday choices, the small ones that slowly shape your character. The Buddha continues, ask yourself 3 questions before you act. He lifts one finger. First, will this cause harm? He raises a second. Second, does this come from kindness or from fear? A third. And third, does this action support peace in myself and in others? You repeat the questions inwardly. They feel like anchors, steady and grounding. The Buddha stands, motioning for you to join him. Walk with me, he says. You rise, following him along a narrow path lined with soft moss. He stops beside a small pool of water, reflecting the stars. See how the water reflects without distortion. When undisturbed, he asks. You nod. When the mind is calm, he says, your actions reflect your true intention. But when the mind is disturbed, your actions distort, like water struck by a stone. He drops a pebble into the pool. Ripples ripple outward, breaking the reflection of the stars. Most harmful actions are like this, he says. Reactions to inner disturbance, rather than choices made from clarity. He lets the pool settle again, the reflection returning. But when you act from peace, he says slowly, you bring peace wherever you go. He turns toward another path, branching off the clearing. A path that looks more structured, almost like a trail worn by travelers seeking purpose. Right action, he says, leads naturally to right livelihood, the way you work, serve, and sustain your life. He steps onto the new path and looks back at you with gentle encouragement. Come, he says, let us explore how to live in a way that honors both your heart and the world. And you follow him, ready for the next teaching. The clearing you step into feels different from all the others. Not softer, not brighter, but clearer. It has the stillness of a place where choices become visible. The Buddha stands at the center, surrounded by small handmade tools laid neatly on a wooden mat. A broom, a bowl, a woven basket, a simple wooden flute, and a few farming tools. Each item looks humble, but cared for, purposeful. Right livelihood, the Buddha begins, is the way you sustain your life without causing harm to yourself or the world. You glance at the tools as he speaks. They represent work, the simple, grounded kind, but also intention, integrity, and the energy you pour into how you live. Many people, he continues, do not realize that their livelihood shapes their mind. Work done in conflict creates a conflicted heart. Work done in greed creates a restless mind. Work done in deception clouds the inner world. He picks up the broom, brushing it lightly across the earth. Dust rises, then settles again. Work that harms others, he says, scatters the mind like dust in a storm. Then he places the broom aside with care. But work done with honesty, kindness, service, and clarity steadies the heart. He gestures toward the woven basket. Its weaving is imperfect, but strong. Strands interlaced with intention rather than perfection. Right livelihood does not demand grand achievements, he says. It asks only that the way you earn your living reflects the person you wish to become. You sit on the grass, letting the meaning settle. You think of jobs you've taken out of stress rather than alignment, decisions made from fear rather than integrity. The Buddha seems to read the shift in your expression. Most people, he says gently, choose their work without choosing their heart. They chase security, status, or approval, forgetting that the cost is often their peace. He kneels and touches the earth with both hands, grounding his body as he speaks. Your livelihood should nourish your spirit, not drain it. You breathe deeply, feeling the weight of that truth. Work isn't just tasks. It's energy exchange. It's time. It's your life given shape. The Buddha picks up the simple wooden flute and holds it carefully. There is work, he says, that creates beauty, connection, and joy, not because it is easy, but because it is honest. He blows a gentle note into the flute. The sound is soft but pure, echoing across the clearing. The heart flourishes, he continues, when it gives what it is meant to give. Then he sets the flute down and lifts the farming tool, worn but sturdy. There is also work, he says, that requires effort, discipline, and strength. But even challenging work can be peaceful when done with a clear intention. He sets the tool aside. Right livelihood asks 3 questions, he says. He raises one finger. Does this work harm anyone? Another. Does it harm my own heart? A third. And does it support the person I am becoming? You repeat the questions inwardly. They resonate more deeply than you expect. The Buddha continues, when you engage in work that aligns with your values, your days feel meaningful. When you engage in work that contradicts them, your spirit becomes divided. He gestures around the clearing. Every tool here represents a way of living that sustains life without causing suffering. But right livelihood is not limited to these. It is any work done with integrity, compassion, and awareness. You take another slow breath. Something inside you feels clearer, like the fog around your life's choices has thinned. The Buddha stands and walks toward a small stream, cutting through the far edge of the clearing. Peaceful work, he says, makes the mind more capable of deeper concentration. He touches the surface of the stream with his fingertip. The ripples spread outward in perfect, gentle circles. When your livelihood does not disturb your heart, he says, your mind becomes steady, like water undisturbed by wind. He steps back, turning his gaze down a narrow trail leading deeper into the night. A path softer, calmer, almost meditative. And now, he says warmly, you are ready for the next teaching. How to cultivate deep focus and inner stillness. He waits for you to rise, then begins walking toward the quiet path. The journey continues, guiding you toward concentration, toward calm. You kneel beside the Buddha at the riverbank, feeling the soft earth shift slightly beneath your weight. The water is impossibly calm in some places and lively in others, swirling around stones before smoothing itself out again. It's alive, moving, responding, yet always returning to its natural flow. The mind, the Buddha begins, is like this river. It moves, it shifts. But with training, it can also become steady, clear, and deeply peaceful. He extends his hand over the surface of the pool. Concentration, he says, is the practice of bringing the mind back to one point again and again until it rests naturally. A small leaf floats by, spinning gently. You watch as it moves with the current, neither clinging to stones nor resisting the flow. The Buddha nods to the drifting leaf. Thoughts are like this, he says. They come, they go, they appear without your permission. Concentration is not the absence of thoughts. It is the ability to not follow them. You breathe slowly, letting his words settle like warm air in your chest. The Buddha closes his eyes briefly, then opens them with soft clarity. Sit with me, he says. You settle into a comfortable position, grounding your hands on your knees. The forest quiets around you, as if leaning in to listen. The Buddha's voice becomes softer, steadier. Begin by noticing the breath, he says. Feel the coolness as it enters. Feel the warmth as it leaves. You inhale. Cool. You exhale. Warm. The rhythm begins to steady itself without effort. Do not push the breath, he says. Let it come naturally. Let it go naturally. The water beside you mirrors the practice, moving without force, accepting every shift, yet always returning to its center. When the mind wanders, the Buddha continues, do not chase it. Do not scold it. Simply bring it back, the way the river returns to its path. A frog croaks nearby, breaking the silence for a moment. Your mind jumps toward the sound, and the Buddha notices your shift. See, he says, smiling softly, the mind moves. That is its nature. Concentration is guiding it back each time, gently, like placing a leaf back on the surface of calm water. You close your eyes. Your breath deepens. Thoughts rise, small, scattered, like pebbles tossed into the pool. Memories, tasks, worries. But instead of grabbing them, you let them drift. And each time, you return to the breath. Cool, warm, cool, warm. The Buddha's voice becomes a quiet thread through the night. Do you feel how the space between thoughts begins to widen? How the mind grows quieter when you stop pulling at it? You nod, the heaviness in your chest melting a little more. Just like the river, he says. When the mud settles, the water becomes clear. He cups his hand into the pool and lifts a palm full of water. At first it is cloudy, disturbed by movement, tiny particles swirling chaotically. He waits. Slowly, the silt begins to settle, and the water clears. The mind settles the same way, he says, not by force, by stillness. He lets the water slip away, returning his hand to his lap. Then he adds, when concentration deepens, the world becomes quieter, not outside you, but inside. You feel it happening, a spreading calm, a spaciousness behind your ribs, a sense that you're not fighting with your own thoughts anymore. They arise, but they don't control. They move, but they don't pull. This, the Buddha says, is the beginning of true meditation. Not escape, not emptiness, but stability. He gestures to a part of the river where small ripples blend into smoothness again. Notice how the deeper water remains untouched by the surface disturbance, he says. The mind, when trained, becomes like that, steady beneath the waves of emotion. You inhale again, and this time the breath feels anchored, like it comes from a deeper place than before. Concentration does not silence life, the Buddha says. It steadies you so life does not shake you. The forest breeze brushes gently against your cheek. The river flows on, and something inside you feels aligned, like a door has opened inward. The Buddha rises slowly and gestures toward another path illuminated by moonlight filtering through tall bamboo. Now that you have learned the beginning of stillness, he says, you are ready to go deeper into the heart of meditation itself. He smiles softly. Come, let us step into silence. And so the journey continues, the river behind you flowing steadily into the night. The moonlit clearing feels sacred, almost untouched by time. The air is cool, but not cold, the kind of cool that wakes the skin gently. The Buddha motions for you to sit, and the earth beneath you feels firm and grounding, as if it has been waiting for this exact moment. This, he says softly, taking his seat across from you, is where the journey turns inward. You settle your hands on your lap. Your spine lengthens naturally, not rigid, but steady. The Buddha closes his eyes for a moment, and the entire clearing seems to follow, falling into a deeper quiet. Begin, he whispers, by noticing the body. You scan your body with slow awareness, the weight of your legs, the soft rise of your chest, the gentle pull of gravity. Nothing to fix, nothing to change, just noticing. The body speaks quietly, the Buddha says. When the mind listens, tension begins to release. And he's right. Your shoulders loosen without effort. Your jaw softens. Even the tiny muscles around your eyes relax. Now, he continues, bring your awareness to the breath. You inhale, feeling the cool air pass through your nose, down your throat, filling your lungs. Do not shape the breath, he says. Let the breath shape you. You exhale. Warm air flows outward, gentle and unforced. Each breath begins to feel like a wave. Not dramatic, rhythmic, natural. The breath, the Buddha says, is the doorway between body and mind. When you rest at this doorway, the mind begins to settle. He falls silent for a moment, letting you follow the breath on your own. Thoughts appear, faint ripples in a still pool, but they don't grip you. They drift, and you return to the breath again. Cool, warm, cool, warm. Now, the Buddha says, let the breath grow quieter. You ease into a slower rhythm, your body loosening further. The clearing feels wider, the night deeper. The air around you has a softness that mirrors the softness developing inside your chest. As the breath softens, he says, the mind begins to open. Something shifts, subtle but unmistakable. The edges of your awareness expand. Sounds become clearer, yet feel further away. Thoughts arise with less urgency, like distant lanterns floating across a dark lake. You are not pushing thoughts away, the Buddha says. You are seeing them as they truly are, passing visitors in the house of the mind. A small memory floats up, random, unimportant. You watch it. It dissolves. Another appears, slightly heavier. You watch again. It, too, fades. The Buddha nods. This is the beginning of liberation. Seeing that you are the watcher, not the storm. Your breath deepens in response. A gentle spaciousness fills your chest, your abdomen, your limbs. You feel lighter, as if a subtle weight has lifted. When the mind quiets, he says, it reveals what has always been beneath the noise: peace, clarity, and presence. The silence deepens even more. You hear the faint rustle of bamboo leaves overhead, the gentle hiss of wind passing through. Your own heartbeat, steady, calm, grounded. Let the mind rest in this quiet, he says, like a bird resting on a branch, held by nothing but trust. You breathe again, and the breath feels different, deeper, fuller, like it's filling the empty spaces inside you that hurried living never touches. The Buddha's voice softens into almost a murmur. In meditation, you are not becoming anyone. You are returning to what you have always been. You feel that truth settle into your bones. He continues, insight does not arise from effort. It arises from stillness, from watching without clinging, without rejection. Your awareness feels open now, like the night sky above you. The mind no longer feels cramped. It feels spacious. Thoughts are small passing clouds in a limitless expanse. In this quiet, the Buddha says, you will begin to see the nature of your own mind, how it moves, how it reacts, how it releases. He lets the silence stretch, not heavy, not awkward, just real. Stay with the breath, he says. Stay with the quiet. Let it reveal what is true. And for several breaths, you do. The world feels both near and far. Your body feels both light and grounded. And your mind, for the first time in a long time, feels peaceful without effort. Finally, the Buddha opens his eyes and looks at you with a soft glow of approval. You have entered the quiet, he says. Now, let us journey into what this quiet reveals, the nature of reality itself. He rises slowly, guiding you toward the next understanding, waiting in the stillness. The clearing before you feels enormous, as if the forest has stepped back to give you room to see clearly. The stars above shimmer in quiet patterns, and the moon casts a soft glow that makes every blade of grass visible. The Buddha sits in the center of the space, and you join him, the earth cool beneath your legs. Insight, the Buddha begins, arises when the mind is steady enough to see without distortion. He lifts his hand and points toward the night sky. Look at the stars. They appear fixed, unmoving, but in truth, they are constantly changing, drifting, burning, dissolving. What seems solid is never still. You follow his gesture, realizing how much of life you take at face value. The Buddha lowers his hand and looks at you gently. Most suffering, he says, comes from believing that things should stay as they are. He draws a small circle in the soil with his fingertip. We cling to the circle of what's familiar, to people, to identities, to moments, even to pain, pretending they are permanent. He wipes the circle away with one smooth motion, but nothing remains unchanged. Reality is movement. A breeze passes through the clearing, brushing softly against your skin. The grass bends, then straightens again. Impermanence is not a threat, the Buddha says. It is the very nature of existence. It is what allows growth, transformation, and freedom. He picks up a small blossom from the ground, pale, delicate, already wilting at the edges. This flower was once a seed. It grew, it bloomed, and now it begins to fade. He holds it gently. Do we suffer because the flower changes, or because we wish it wouldn't? Your chest tightens slightly, not from sadness, but from recognizing how often you've resisted change, fearing what it might take away. The Buddha notices your shift and offers a small smile. Insight is seeing that change is not the enemy, he says. Clinging is. He places the blossom on the ground and watches a soft breeze carry one of its petals away. When we cling to what must change, he continues, we create our own suffering. He pauses, letting the truth settle around you like cool air. But when we see reality clearly, when we see that everything rises, fades, and transforms, we begin to release our grip. He touches the soil again. Insight is the wisdom that frees the heart. You let your breath deepen. The clearing feels wider now, your mind stretching into it, recognizing patterns in your life you've been too close to see, moments you tried to hold on to, people you wished would stay the same, versions of yourself you feared losing, pain that lingered because you never allowed it to pass. The Buddha sees the recognition forming in your eyes. Everything you experience, he says softly, is part of an unfolding process. There is no single moment you can freeze, no feeling you can keep forever. He looks toward the sky again. Even the moon changes, full, empty, full again, but its essence remains. You follow his gaze, the moon glowing steady but never static. To see reality as it truly is, he says, is to understand that change is not chaos, it is the rhythm of life. A quiet peace begins spreading through your chest. Change still feels uncertain, but no longer frightening. There is something gentle about it now, natural, expected, even beautiful. You begin to understand, the Buddha continues, that nothing you lose is truly lost. It has simply transformed. He gestures toward the forest surrounding the clearing. Trees grow from fallen leaves. Rivers change their course, but continue to flow. Even the pain you carried brought you here, to this moment of seeing. Your breath catches, not painfully, but with a sense of recognition. Every struggle, every shift, every broken moment has shaped you. None of it was static. None of it stayed the same. The world, the Buddha says softly, is a dance of arising and passing away. When you accept this, you stop fighting reality. A single firefly drifts into the clearing, blinking softly. Then another. Soon the air glows with tiny lights moving in gentle patterns, appearing, fading, returning. Insight, the Buddha says, is seeing clearly that you are part of this dance, not separate from it. You feel that truth resonate all the way into your bones. He stands, the moonlight outlining his form in silver. Now that you have glimpsed the true nature of reality, he says, you are ready for the next step, embracing impermanence with an open heart. He gestures toward a path where the fireflies drift like falling stars. Come, let us walk into the teaching of letting things change. The glade you step into feels like a quiet sanctuary carved out of the night. Fallen petals blanket the earth in pale colors, forming a natural cushion beneath your feet. The Buddha sits beside a tree whose branches release blossoms gently, one by one, as if teaching the lesson through their slow descent. You settle beside him, the petals cool and soft under your hands. Impermanence, the Buddha begins, is often feared because the mind clings to what it loves. Another blossom detaches from the branch overhead, twirling in the air before landing at your side. But look closely, he says. Nothing in nature fears change. Only the human mind does. You breathe slowly, watching the petals fall, each one unique, each one drifting lightly through the night before resting peacefully on the earth. Their softness soothes something deep inside you. When you understand impermanence, the Buddha continues, you begin to see change as a companion rather than an enemy. He lifts a fallen petal. This petal was once hidden inside a bud. Then it blossomed. Now it falls. Each stage is natural. None is wrong. None is missing anything. He lets the petal slip from his fingers, and it rejoins the others on the ground without resistance. Your chest loosens. For the first time, the idea of change feels less like loss and more like flow, a quiet shifting of forms rather than a tearing apart. The Buddha continues, much of your suffering comes not from change itself, but from resisting it. He presses his palm gently to the earth. The world is always moving. When you try to hold it still, you feel pain. But when you move with it, peace follows you like a shadow. You nod slowly. You've felt that resistance before, clinging to moments, fearing endings, grieving transitions even before they happened. But here, beneath the falling petals, you feel the subtle relief that comes from letting things be what they are. Impermanence, he says, reminds you that beauty comes and goes, and then returns in new forms. He gestures toward a patch of tiny buds near the base of the tree. Every fallen petal makes room for new growth. You look at the tree differently now. The falling petals are not a tragedy. They're a continuation, a transformation, a cycle. When you accept impermanence, the Buddha says gently, you become free from the fear of losing what you love. He looks directly into your eyes, his expression deeply compassionate. To love fully is to accept that nothing stays the same, and to cherish every moment because of that truth. The words settle into your heart like warm tea spreading through your chest. You think of people you've loved, moments you wished could last forever, and the pain that came when they changed. But now, something softens. It is not wrong to feel sadness, he says. Sadness honors what mattered, but suffering lessens when you let change flow instead of fighting it. A breeze moves through the glade, lifting several petals into the air. They swirl gently around you, weightless, free. Something inside you swirls with them, a quiet acceptance, a sense of relief you hadn't realized you needed. The Buddha continues, impermanence is also comfort, because no suffering lasts forever. He raises his hand to the sky. Just as joy changes, so does pain. Just as blossoms fall, storms pass. You feel the truth of it resonate deeply. You've survived every difficult moment you feared wouldn't end. And now, impermanence feels like a promise of healing rather than a threat of loss. The Buddha leans slightly toward you. And when you accept impermanence, something beautiful arises. You stop clinging to me and mine so tightly. You blink, noticing the shift in his tone, gentle but signaling something deeper. Impermanence reveals that everything you think of as self is also changing, he says. Your thoughts, your emotions, your identities, your stories, all flow like the river we sat beside. He lets a handful of petals slip from his palm, scattering in the air. Nothing fixed, nothing solid, nothing separate. You watch the petals fall, each drifting in its own direction. Somehow, instead of feeling lost, you feel connected, part of the same gentle movement. This understanding, the Buddha says softly, opens the door to the next truth, that the self you cling to is not as solid as you believe. He rises slowly, offering his hand to help you stand. Come, he says, voice tender and steady. Let us walk into the teaching of selflessness. The freedom that comes when you see You are more than the stories you hold, and you follow him. Petals, brushing lightly around your feet as the glade fades behind you. The clearing feels different, quieter, yet somehow more alive. The air carries a subtle hum, like the space around you is vibrating with a truth you can almost sense, but not yet grasp. The Buddha sits with his back straight, his expression serene, as if what he's about to share is both simple and infinite. You have seen that everything changes, he begins. Now look inward. What you call I also changes. He lets the words hang in the air, not forcing them, simply offering them. Thoughts arise and fade, he continues. Emotions swell and dissolve. Beliefs shift. Preferences evolve. Even the body changes moment by moment. He turns his palm upward. So tell me, what part of this is permanent? Your breath catches slightly. The question isn't meant to unsettle you, but it does open something. You begin to notice how often you've held on to a fixed story about yourself. Who you are, what you can or cannot do, how you should be. But when you look closely, nothing in your experience actually stays the same. The sense of self, the Buddha says, is not a single, solid thing. It is a collection of shifting patterns, sensations, memories, habits, hopes, fears, roles. He draws a circle in the dirt, then breaks it with a single line. We imagine the circle is whole, he says, but it exists only because we keep connecting its parts. He wipes the circle away with his hand. In truth, he continues, there is no unchanging core behind it. You inhale slowly. It's not frightening. It's freeing. The idea that you aren't locked into a single identity, that you don't have to be the person you were yesterday. It feels like a weight lifting. The Buddha watches your reaction gently. Understanding no self is not about denying your existence, he says. It is about seeing that you are not separate. You are not isolated. You are not fixed. He touches the earth. A tree exists because of sunlight, water, soil, wind. Remove any of these, and the tree cannot be. He looks at you. You exist because of countless conditions, teachers, family, friends, the food you eat, the breath you take, the experiences that shaped you. His tone softens. You are not a separate self. You are an unfolding. The clearing feels larger now, as though his words are stretching the borders of your awareness. You picture the moments that shaped you, laughter, mistakes, heartbreaks, kindnesses, lessons. Each one a thread in a tapestry you once believed was you, but now see as a constantly woven pattern. When you cling to a fixed identity, the Buddha says, you suffer. You say, this is me, or this is how I am, and bind yourself to an illusion. He opens his hand slowly. But when you release the need to be a fixed self, you become free to grow, free to change, free to respond with wisdom instead of habit. You feel something inside you loosen, that pressure you've carried to define yourself, to maintain a certain image, to hold together a version of you that was never meant to be permanent. The Buddha continues, look closely, and you will see that every person is the same, shifting patterns influenced by causes you cannot see. He gestures toward the forest around you. When you understand no self in yourself, you begin to understand it in all beings. He pauses, and from this understanding, compassion naturally arises. You blink, surprised by how naturally the connection forms. If no one is a fixed, unchanging self, if everyone is shaped by causes, conditions, wounds, and experiences, then the harsh judgments you once held begin to soften. No self, the Buddha says gently, does not erase your uniqueness. It reveals your connectedness. A breeze moves through the clearing, brushing lightly against your arms. It feels like a reminder. You are part of something larger, not separate, not alone. You are not a solid stone, he says. You are a wave, rising, dissolving, rising again, always connected to the great ocean of life. Your breath deepens. Something inside you feels clearer, more spacious. The Buddha rises slowly. The lesson has landed. When you understand no self, he says, you no longer cling so tightly to your own suffering, and you open more deeply to the suffering of others. He turns toward a distant grove where the night glows faintly. Come, he says warmly, let us walk into the compassion that arises from this understanding, the compassion that embraces all beings. And with that, you step forward into the next teaching. The grove opens like a living cathedral, branches arching overhead, leaves shimmering with silver light, the earth beneath you soft and welcoming. A gentle breeze moves through the canopy, carrying with it the hum of insects, the distant call of night birds, and the subtle breath of the forest itself. The Buddha sits in the center of the grove, and you take your place beside him, the quiet settling around you like a warm cloak. Interbeing, the Buddha begins, means that nothing exists alone. Everything arises in connection with everything else. He lifts a fallen leaf and holds it between his fingertips. Look at this leaf. Inside it, you can see the sunlight that fed the tree, the rain that nourished its roots, the soil enriched by generations of other leaves, the wind that carried its seed, the hands that did not harm it. He turns the leaf gently. This leaf is made of everything that is not the leaf. You exhale softly, feeling the truth ripple through you. The leaf is not separate, neither are you. You are made of others, the Buddha continues, of kindness you've received, of lessons you've learned, of people who walked before you, of the earth that sustains you, of the breath that enters you from trees you have never seen. You glance around the grove. Every tree, every insect, every breeze suddenly feels closer, not metaphorically, but literally connected. When you breathe in, the Buddha says, you take in air exhaled by the forest. When you breathe out, you give breath back to it. This is interbeing. He folds his hands in his lap. Your joys are connected to the joys of others. Your pain is connected to their pain. No being suffers alone, and no being heals alone. You let that settle. The weight of isolation, the belief that your struggles are yours alone, begins to dissolve into something softer and more spacious. The Buddha's voice deepens with gentle conviction. To understand interbeing is to feel tenderness for all life, not out of duty, but out of recognition. A deer steps quietly into the grove, pausing near the edge to watch you both. Its presence feels like part of the teaching itself. The Buddha smiles. When you see that the boundaries between beings are thin, he says, you naturally cultivate gentleness. How can you harm another when in truth you are harming yourself? The deer lowers its head slightly, then wanders deeper into the forest. The Buddha continues. Interbeing dissolves the illusion of us and them. It reveals that kindness is not charity. It is simply remembering the truth. He touches the earth. Every act of generosity is an act of connection. Every act of compassion is an act of recognition. Every act of kindness is an act of remembering. We are. Your chest warms at the words. Something soft uncurls within you, as if your heart has been waiting to hear this. When you understand interbeing, the Buddha says, you no longer feel small. You no longer feel alone. You begin to understand that your life contributes to all lives. He gestures toward a cluster of tiny flowers at your feet. These flowers bloom because the soil held them. The soil exists because of countless cycles of life and death. And you, he adds gently, exist because of countless beings who cared for you, fed you, supported you, taught you, or simply breathed alongside you. The truth is undeniable. Your life is woven from threads not your own. And when you see this clearly, he says, your heart naturally opens into generosity. The breeze shifts again, brushing warm air across your face as if affirming the direction of the teaching. Generosity, the Buddha adds, is not measured by wealth or possession. It is measured by willingness, the willingness to give peace, attention, kindness, understanding. He leans slightly closer, his voice warm and steady. When you give without expecting anything in return, you reflect the truth of interbeing, that what you offer to the world is what you offer to yourself. You breathe deeply. The grove feels alive with connection, a web of relationships, visible not with the eyes, but with the heart. The Buddha rises slowly and looks toward a path lit by soft starlight. Now that you understand interbeing, he says, you are ready for the next teaching, the joy that grows from generosity. He steps forward gently, the forest welcoming you both deeper into its embrace. Come, he says, let us walk into the heart of giving. You settle onto the moss with the Buddha, and the fireflies hover around you in slow, glowing currents. Their soft light feels symbolic, like small reminders of how even the tiniest offering can brighten the darkness. The Buddha's presence radiates a gentle warmth, and the quiet of the clearing opens like a welcoming hand. Many people, he begins him softly, believe giving is a sacrifice, but true generosity is not loss. It is abundance shared. He picks up a small firefly resting on a leaf and watches its light flicker. When you give with an open heart, he says, you do not become poorer, you become richer in joy. He lifts the leaf. The firefly drifts away into the air, its soft glow weaving back into the night. Generosity, the Buddha continues, arises naturally from the understanding that we interair with all beings. He folds his hands peacefully in his lap. When you give to another, you are giving to yourself, because there is no separate you or them, only the shared life that flows between all beings. You let that truth sink in. Every time you've helped someone, even in small ways, there was always a quiet warmth afterward, a feeling that lingered far longer than the moment itself. The Buddha notices your reflection. That warmth, he says, is the joy of giving, a joy without cost, a joy that multiplies simply by being offered. He reaches toward a small fruit placed near a stone, likely left by another traveler. He holds it gently in his palm. Giving is not measured by wealth, he says. It is measured by intention. He divides the fruit into 2 pieces and offers one to you. You accept it, and he places the other piece back on the stone. And the simple offering, he says, can carry great love. You take a small bite. The sweetness is subtle, refreshing. The Buddha takes nothing for himself, and somehow that feels exactly right. His joy seems to come not from receiving, but from witnessing the transfer of goodness. Most people give in hope of receiving something in return, he says. Praise, appreciation, affection, security. He shakes his head gently. But this is not generosity. That is trade. He looks at you with clear, kind eyes. True giving expects nothing. It is free like a breeze, soft like a smile offered for no reason other than kindness. A firefly lands on your knee. Its tiny glow pulses twice, then lifts away again. When giving is free, the Buddha says, it becomes joyful. You give because it feels right. You give because the heart feels full. You give because you see yourself in others. He gestures toward a cluster of wildflowers nearby. Even a word of kindness is a gift, a moment of listening, a gentle gesture, a patient breath. You think of the small moments in your own life, the times someone listened or helped or showed up when you didn't ask. Those moments were priceless, not because they were grand, but because they were given freely. Generosity, the Buddha says, is the foundation of a free heart. He pauses, letting the silence wrap gently around the teaching. When the heart is closed, he explains, we grasp, we fear, we hold tightly to what we have. He closes his fist softly, demonstrating constriction. But when the heart opens, he says, loosening his hand, we discover that joy flows naturally outward. The fireflies move in gentle patterns around you, rising, fading, returning. Their soft glow, like tiny expressions of generosity themselves. Giving, the Buddha says, is not only an act, it is a state of being. He leans slightly closer. A generous heart shines. It warms itself by warming others. You feel something bloom inside you, a recognition of the truth you've always known, but perhaps never understood fully. And the more you give, he continues, the more gratitude grows within you. You blink, sensing the transition forming. Yes, he says softly, smiling. Gratitude is the natural companion of generosity. When you give freely, you begin to see all that you have been given. He stands gently, as if lifted by the lightness of the truth he just spoke. Come, he says, extending a hand toward the path where moonlight filters through the branches. Now, let us walk into the teaching of gratitude, the practice that reveals abundance in every breath. The clearing feels quiet in a different way, not heavy, not empty, but full. The night-blooming flowers spread across the ground like a soft, glowing carpet, each one offering its own tiny light to the darkness. The Buddha sits among them, and you follow, feeling the petals, brush gently against your legs. Their delicate fragrance fills the air, subtle but comforting. Gratitude, the Buddha begins, is the art of noticing the blessings that already surround you. He plucks one of the tiny blossoms and places it gently in your palm. This flower blooms only at night, he says. It waits patiently for the darkness, then opens to offer its beauty. He folds your hand around the blossom. Gratitude is like that. It wakes up when the mind becomes still, enough to see the small wonders of your life. You look at the flower in your hand, simple, fragile, unnoticed by most. Yet here it is, luminous in the palm of your hand. You take a breath, and something inside you softens. Most people, the Buddha continues, search for great things to be grateful for. They wait for achievements, for success, for special moments. He shakes his head gently, but gratitude is found in the small moments. The breath that fills your lungs, the warmth of sunlight, the presence of someone who cares, the chance to rest after a long day. He gestures to the night sky. Even the quiet of this moment is a gift. You breathe a little deeper, noticing how the cool air feels against your skin, how the flowers sway gently in the breeze, how your heart has begun to settle in ways you didn't expect. Gratitude suddenly feels less like something you do and more like something that rises naturally when you pause to notice. Gratitude, the Buddha says, is not a feeling that arrives only when life is kind. It is a practice that reveals kindness, even in difficult moments. He presses his palm softly to the earth. When the mind trains itself to notice goodness, the world becomes brighter. Not because the world changes, but because the heart does. You think about the times you were overwhelmed by stress or sadness, yet still found small comforts. A friend checking in, a warm drink, a moment of rest. Those tiny lights had always been there, but you often missed them, lost in the weight of what was wrong. Gratitude, the Buddha says, is the antidote to fear. You look up, surprised by the shift. He meets your gaze with calm certainty. When the heart remembers what it has, he explains, it stops worrying so much about what it lacks. He lifts a fallen leaf and rubs it gently between his fingers. Fear shrinks the world. Gratitude expands it. The words feel like a revelation, simple, obvious, yet deeply true. You feel your chest loosen as you breathe in again. When gratitude becomes a daily practice, the Buddha continues, the heart learns to relax into the present moment. He closes his eyes briefly. It becomes easier to let go of worry because you trust that each moment brings something you can appreciate. A breeze flows through the clearing, stirring the flowers. Their soft glow ripples across the ground like a wave of tiny stars. Each day, the Buddha says, pause for a moment. Notice something small, the way water feels on your hands, the color of the sky, the sound of laughter, the warmth of your own breath. He smiles softly. These small moments are not small. They are the threads that weave a joyful life. You feel gratitude rising inside you now, not forced, not dramatic, but steady and real. The flower in your palm, the night around you, the quiet presence of the Buddha, it all feels like enough. Gratitude, he continues, is what helps the heart loosen its grip on fear. He leans forward slightly, his voice almost a whisper. When you trust the goodness in small things, fear loses its power. You begin to see the world as a friend rather than a threat. You breathe, and for the first time in a long time, the world truly does feel like a friend. Gentle, supportive, quietly generous. The Buddha rises slowly, brushing petals from his robe. Now, he says, your heart is ready to release fear and walk with courage. He gestures toward a path where the shadows seem softer, the darkness less intimidating. Come, he says warmly. Let us learn how to let go of fear. The trees stretch high above you, their dark silhouettes merging with the night sky. The path is quieter here, not empty, but expectant, as if it knows this teaching requires a different kind of presence. You walk beside the Buddha, and though the shadows around you shift with the breeze, your heart feels steady. Gratitude rests in your chest like an ember, quietly glowing. The Buddha slows, then stops in a small clearing where moonlight falls only in pieces through the branches. Fear, he begins, is not your enemy. It is a visitor. He kneels and picks up a fallen branch, its shape twisted and uneven. Fear appears distorted like this, he says, not because it is evil, but because we look at it from a place of tension. He places the branch aside. When you soften, fear takes a clearer shape. You breathe quietly and notice it, that first subtle shift inside, a gentle acknowledgement of the fears you've carried. Not overwhelming, not sharp, just present. The Buddha meets your gaze. To fight fear is to feed it. Resistance is the fuel that keeps it burning. He lifts a small stone and drops it into a still patch of earth. The impact creates a small indentation, a mark that settles quickly. When fear arises, he says, meet it the way soft earth receives a falling stone. Without resistance, without denial, without force. You let the metaphor sink in. You've spent so much of your life pushing fear away, trying to outthink it, outrun it, overpower it. But here, in this quiet forest, that effort feels unnecessary, even unkind. Fear softens, the Buddha says, when met with awareness. He closes his eyes and breathes slowly. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect? The question lands deeper than you expect. You realize fear is not there to harm you. It is there to guard you, to warn you, to protect the fragile parts of your heart. The Buddha opens his eyes again. Most fear is rooted in love, he says. Love for your safety, love for your dreams, love for others. Fear becomes harmful only when unexamined. He touches his chest. Meet fear as you would meet a frightened child, patiently, gently, kindly. He pauses, letting the stillness gather. Something inside you relaxes, a small surrender to the idea that fear doesn't need to be conquered, just understood. When you sit with fear, the Buddha says, you learn its language. He motions toward a tree with deep roots. Fear says, stay safe. Courage says, move wisely. Kindness says, I am here with you. You feel all three truths inside you, not competing, but harmonizing. The Buddha continues, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is walking with fear and not letting it close your heart. A breeze moves through the trees, brushing against your skin. The shadows shift again, softer now, less rigid. When the heart is closed, he explains. Fear becomes a prison. But when the heart is open, fear becomes a guide. He lifts a hand, palm up. Courageous kindness means saying to your fear, "You may come with me, but you may not drive." You breathe out slowly. That truth feels like permission. Permission to feel fear without letting it rule you. The Buddha walks to the edge of the clearing where a patch of moonlight shines on the ground. "Stand here," he says gently. You step into the light, feeling its soft warmth on your skin. Fear shrinks in the presence of awareness, he says, and awareness grows in the presence of light. He steps beside you. Now look into the shadows. They have not disappeared, but do they threaten you? You look. The shadows still sway, but they feel less imposing. Just movements of nature, not enemies. This is the power of meeting fear with kindness, the Buddha says. You are no longer pushed around by illusions. He turns to face you fully. When fear arises, place a hand over your heart and say, "It's okay to feel this. I will stay with you." This is courage. This is compassion. You repeat the gesture silently. The warmth of your palm deepens your breath. The Buddha smiles. When you treat fear gently, trust begins to grow. He steps toward a path where the shadows thin into soft twilight. Trust, he says, is the next companion on your journey. The trust that life will hold you, even when you cannot see the whole path. He begins walking, and the forest brightens the farther he goes. "Come," he calls softly, "let us enter the teaching of trust." The moon illuminates the winding trail before you, turning the path into a gentle ribbon of silver between the trees. You stand at the threshold of it, with the Buddha, feeling the quiet invitation of this moment. Not a command, not a push, just an opening. The forest behind you feels softer now, and the future ahead feels less threatening, more like something you can lean into rather than brace against. Trust, the Buddha begins, stepping forward, is the willingness to walk, even when you cannot see the entire way. You follow him, your footsteps soft on the earth. The path curves, then straightens, then curves again, never showing more than a few steps ahead. Strangely, that feels comforting. The Buddha gestures toward the soft bend of the trail. When you try to see too far ahead, he says, the mind fills the unknown with fear. He looks back at you with a gentle smile. But when you focus on the step you are taking now, the path feels safe beneath your feet. You breathe out slowly and allow your attention to settle into the present moment, the feeling of the ground supporting you, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet of the forest around you. Something inside you relaxes deeper. Trusting the path, the Buddha continues, does not mean you know where it leads. It means you trust your ability to move with it. He pauses, touching a tree trunk as he passes it. Every moment of your life has brought you here. Each joy, each sorrow, each mistake, each success. They formed your feet, your breath, your understanding. He turns to you. So trust that they will carry you forward. The words soften something inside your mind. The constant worry you've carried about making the right decisions, the fear of taking a wrong turn, the pressure to predict every outcome. In the stillness of this trail, those fears lose their sharp edges. Most suffering, the Buddha says, comes from trying to control what has not yet arrived. He bends to pick up a small stone. This stone does not worry about where the river will flow. It rests where it is placed, trusting the current to carry it when the time comes. He places the stone gently back on the earth. Trust, he says, is choosing presence over prediction. You feel the truth of it settle in your chest. The future has always been uncertain, yet somehow life has carried you through every moment, even the ones you felt unprepared for. You're still here, still breathing, still learning. The path widens, revealing a hillside where the moon paints the grass in silvery waves. The Buddha walks to the top and sits, motioning for you to join him. From this vantage point, you can see only the beginning of the path ahead, not its destination, not its challenges, just the next few steps. You do not need to know every step, the Buddha says, only the one you are taking. He places a hand over his heart. Trust begins here, with yourself. You feel your own hand move to your chest, mirroring the gesture. The warmth of your palm grounds you, connecting you to your breath. Trusting yourself, the Buddha continues, means believing that you will respond with wisdom when the moment arrives, not worrying about it before it does. He gazes at the moonlit path below. This is why we practice awareness, compassion, and courage, not to remove uncertainty, but to meet it with a steady mind. A breeze brushes across the hill, carrying the scent of pine. The night feels expansive yet calm, like the world is breathing alongside you. Trust is not blind, the Buddha says. It is rooted in experience, in seeing that you have survived every moment that once terrified you. You smile softly. He's right. You've stood in uncertainty before. You've faced endings, beginnings, fears, and unknowns. And somehow, life continued to rise beneath your feet, moment after moment. When you trust the path, the Buddha says, each moment becomes enough. You stop rushing. You stop resisting. You stop searching for safety outside yourself. He looks at you with warm eyes, and in that stillness, serenity begins to grow. The hillside seems to soften around you, the night deepening into something peaceful and almost luminous. Trust leads naturally to serenity, the Buddha says. A serenity not dependent on circumstances, but born from the steadiness of your own heart. He rises slowly and gestures toward a valley below, where the forest grows quieter and gentler. Come, he says, let us walk into the teaching of serenity, the calm that arises when trust becomes your companion. And you follow him, step by step, trusting the path beneath your feet. The clearing feels like the quiet center of the world, open, calm, and gently illuminated by the soft silver hue of the moon. You sit across from the Buddha, and the grass beneath you shifts like a warm blanket shaped by the breeze. The night is so still that even your breath sounds louder and clearer than before. You can feel the calm you've been cultivating gathering inside you like a small, steady light. Peace, the Buddha begins softly, is not something you chase. It is something that grows when the heart is no longer fighting itself. His words settle into the clearing like falling petals. You feel their truth immediately. Peace has always felt distant when you tried to force it. But here, in the softness of the night, it arises naturally, without effort. He continues, the mind becomes peaceful when it no longer resists what is present. He touches the grass beside him. This grass does not struggle to be taller or shorter. It simply grows, When the heart is allowed to be as it is, peace blossoms in the same way. You let your awareness settle into your body. Your breath moves without force. Your shoulders relax. Even your thoughts drift more gently, like clouds passing across a quiet sky. The peace you feel now, the Buddha says, is not a gift from the forest, nor from me. It is your own mind returning to its natural state. He smiles slightly. A calm mind is not created. It is revealed once the storms within you begin to settle. You look inward and notice it, a calm spaciousness rising from a deeper part of you. It feels familiar, like something you've known before, but forgotten. The Buddha watches your quiet recognition. You were born with this peace, he says, but the noise of life covers it, layer by layer. The mind becomes filled with fear, desire, distraction, regret. Peace does not leave you. It becomes hidden. He lifts a handful of grass and gently releases it. The blades float down softly. When you practice awareness, compassion, trust, and letting go, he continues, each layer of noise falls away. He smiles again, and the quiet beneath reappears, not new, but remembered. You breathe deeper, feeling how this peace is not fragile. It's not pretending. It's steady, grounded, warm. The clearing feels like an outward expression of your inner state, open, soft, alive. The Buddha closes his eyes briefly. Peace is not the absence of difficulty, he says. It is the presence of understanding. He places a hand lightly over his heart. When you understand your emotions, they no longer control you. When you understand change, fear loses its grip. When you understand interbeing, anger softens into compassion. His hand lowers. When all these understandings take root, peace blossoms from within. You think of your life, the moments of overwhelm, the storms you've weathered, the confusion you've carried, and yet here you sit, breathing calmly, feeling whole in a way you didn't expect. The Buddha reads the shift in your expression. You have not created peace, he says gently. You have uncovered it. A warm breeze moves across the clearing, brushing your skin. You close your eyes and feel the air flow through you, not pushing, not pulling, just moving. Peace feels like that. Movement without force. Openness without effort. Peace grows, the Buddha continues, when the heart stops clinging. He looks up at the sky, where the stars shimmer softly. When nothing needs to be held tightly, everything feels lighter. You breathe into that truth. Your breath deepens. Your mind softens. Peace expands like a flower unfurling in slow motion within your chest. The Buddha's voice returns, calm and steady. When peace blossoms within you, the world no longer feels like something you must control. It becomes something you can meet with openness. He gazes warmly at you, and from this openness, wisdom begins to awaken. You blink, sensing the shift. Every lesson so far, compassion, balance, generosity, trust, feels like it has been preparing you for something deeper, something approaching. You are beginning, he says, to touch the edge of awakening, not as an achievement, but as a natural unfolding. He rises slowly, offering his hand to help you stand. The grass sways gently as you lift yourself, the peace within you matching the calm of the clearing. Come, the Buddha says with a quiet smile. Let us walk into the teaching of insight, where wisdom opens like dawn, and with that, you follow him toward the next gentle horizon. The grove glows with a warm golden brilliance, the light seeming to rise from the earth itself. It is not bright enough to overwhelm. Rather, it fills the space with a soft warmth, like the first rays of dawn spreading gently across the horizon. You step into the light, and it settles around you like an embrace, illuminating the quiet peace you discovered in the last chapter. This light, the Buddha begins, standing beside you, is not outside of you. It is the reflection of your own clarity. His voice carries a calm certainty that feels like truth made gentle. You breathe in and feel the brightness inside your chest respond, faint but real. A subtle glow you might have missed if your heart were still heavy or crowded. Awakening, the Buddha continues, is not perfection. It is seeing clearly. He kneels down, scooping a handful of the glowing earth into his palm. The soil shimmers softly. Insight does not make you flawless, he says. It makes you aware. He lets the glowing soil fall slowly through his fingers. Aware of your thoughts, aware of your emotions, aware of your habits, aware of the suffering that once controlled you. You watch the light drift back to the earth, dissolving into the ground. Most people believe awakening is becoming someone new, the Buddha says. He shakes his head gently. No. Awakening is remembering who you truly are beneath confusion. The words resonate deeply. You realize how often you've believed that growth required becoming something else. Stronger, wiser, kinder, better. But now, in this luminous grove, you feel something different. An understanding that who you are at your core is already whole. The Buddha continues walking deeper into the light, and you follow. Awakening does not require you to escape yourself, he says. It invites you to return to yourself. He touches his chest, to the part of you that is spacious, to the part of you that is compassionate, to the part of you that knows truth without effort. A soft breeze moves through the grove, making the golden leaves shimmer like tiny lanterns. Before awakening, the Buddha says, the mind is clouded by illusions, fear, craving, anger, clinging. He moves his hand through the air as though brushing away invisible dust. These illusions distort your vision. They make you believe you are separate, broken, lacking. He steps closer to you. When the mind becomes clear, even for a moment, the illusion weakens. You feel a subtle shift inside, like fog lifting from a mirror. A new sharpness enters your awareness, but it's not rigid or sharp. It's soft, kind, and deeply honest. Awakening is simply seeing reality without the fog, the Buddha says. He points to the golden light around you. This glow is the clarity of your own awareness, steady, warm, illuminating. He sits beneath a tree whose roots pulse with the same gentle shimmer. You sit beside him. With clarity, he says, you begin to understand your suffering instead of becoming it. He looks at you gently. You feel an emotion, but you do not become that emotion. He draws a circle in the glowing soil. You experience a thought, but you do not mistake it for truth. He flicks his finger lightly, breaking the circle. You notice a fear, but you do not bow to it. You inhale slowly, feeling the distance between awareness and emotion widen inside you, not pushing feelings away, but seeing them clearly, like clouds passing across a bright sky. With this clarity, the Buddha says, the light within you awakens. He lifts his hand, and the grove brightens briefly, reflecting the truth of his words. You no longer walk blindly, you walk with understanding. He rises and stands in the heart of the golden grove, looking like a figure carved from light and compassion. This awakening, he says, is not an end. It is a beginning. He smiles gently, a beginning of living with integrity, a beginning of acting from compassion, a beginning of seeing the world as it truly is, interconnected, changing, alive. He steps toward a small path leading toward a dimmer, quieter part of the forest. Awakening must be lived, he says, not admired. He looks back at you with warmth. So now, let us learn how to integrate this clarity, how to bring the inner light into every moment of your life. He takes a step forward. Come, the next teaching awaits. The forest grows brighter as you continue walking, not because the moon has changed, but because the light inside you has. Each step feels different now, grounded, aware, intentional. The Buddha walks beside you in silence for a few moments, giving you the space to feel the transformation that has slowly unfolded through each teaching. Wisdom, he begins gently, is not meant to stay in a quiet grove. It is meant to move through the world with you. He gestures toward the path that winds ahead, its soil marked by footprints from countless travelers who came seeking something similar. The true test of wisdom, he says, is not how peaceful you feel when life is calm, but how you respond when the world becomes chaotic. A breeze stirs the branches overhead. Life will challenge you, the Buddha continues. Storms will come. People will misunderstand you. Circumstances will shift without your permission. He looks at you, not warning you, but preparing you. But with wisdom, you will not be shaken as easily. You inhale deeply. The quiet confidence in his voice makes you feel steadier already. Begin, he says, by carrying awareness into simple moments. He kneels to brush his hand through a patch of grass. When you walk, know that you are walking. When you breathe, know that you are breathing. When you listen, give your whole presence. He straightens again, brushing the soil from his palm. Presence transforms ordinary moments into sacred ones. You realize that the world outside these teachings is full of moments you have rushed through. Meals eaten without tasting, conversations half heard, days lived in a blur. Wisdom invites you to live differently. The Buddha continues, carry compassion with you wherever you go. His tone deepens with warmth. When you meet others, remember you do not know the burdens they carry. Speak gently, act kindly, assume goodness unless shown otherwise. He looks toward a small animal rustling in the bushes, a reminder that every being in the world moves with its own fears and hopes. Let your compassion be your default, he says, not because the world always deserves it, but because compassion frees you. You breathe out slowly. That truth settles deep in your chest. The Buddha walks a little farther, his footsteps soft, but purposeful. And carry balance, he adds. Do not lean too far into desire or too far into fear. Let the middle way guide your decisions. He pauses, allowing you to feel the importance of that teaching. Balance keeps your mind steady in a world that constantly pulls you in every direction. You nod, remembering how unbalanced life can feel. Deadlines, responsibilities, emotions rising and falling. Balance will be your anchor. The Buddha's voice softens even more. Carry your inner light into your relationships. He places a hand over his heart. Listen more deeply. Speak more truthfully. Love without possession. Let others be who they are, not who you want them to be. He smiles gently. In this way, you become a peaceful presence, a refuge for others. As you continue walking, the path opens into a small clearing where the stars shine brighter. The Buddha stops here, turning to face you fully. And most importantly, he says, carry your understanding of impermanence. He lifts his gaze to the stars. Nothing you experience tomorrow will last forever. Not joy, not sorrow, not conflict, not ease. Let this truth free you from clinging and fear. The breeze sweeps softly through the clearing. When you remember impermanence, the Buddha explains, you appreciate each moment more deeply, and you suffer less when things change. You feel the wisdom weaving itself through your heart, not as ideas, but as lived truths you can bring into the world. The Buddha continues, carry your trust, your courage, your peace. He steps closer and places his hand gently on your shoulder. A gesture filled with warmth and quiet strength. You may not always feel wise, he says softly. You may forget. You may lose your way sometimes. This is natural. Then he looks into your eyes. But the teachings you have learned will always be within you, like seeds waiting for rain. Your breath deepens. Something expands inside you. Confidence, clarity, readiness. He steps back, allowing the night to settle around you both. Now, he says, you are ready for the final teaching, the blessing that will guide you into rest. He turns toward a path lit with soft starlight. Come, let us walk to the closing. The meadow opens like a cradle beneath the night sky, its gentle sway mimicking the breath of the earth itself. You sit beside the Buddha, the cool grass brushing your skin, and for a moment, the entire world feels perfectly still. No wind, no rustling branches, just the quiet hum of life settling down for rest. The Buddha looks at you with the softness of someone who sees not just your journey, but your whole being. You have listened with an open heart, he begins. You have walked through fear, through understanding, through compassion, through silence. Now, it is time to rest in the peace you have cultivated. His voice is warm, like a blanket laid gently over your shoulders. You breathe deeper, allowing the calm to sink into your bones. Close your eyes, he says softly. Feel the earth holding you. Feel the breath moving through you. Nothing is required of you now. You close your eyes, and the darkness you find is not empty. It is comforting, smooth, like warm water. The Buddha's presence feels close, steady. You are safe in this moment, he whispers. The world asks nothing of you. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet river. Your breath slows naturally. Each inhale feels softer. Each exhale releases a different kind of weight. Worries, tension, old stories that no longer serve you. You have learned much tonight, the Buddha says, but wisdom is not held by effort. It is held by ease. He pauses, letting your breath deepen even more. Let me offer you a blessing, not as a teacher to a student, but as one being of compassion to another. The air grows warmer, as though the stars themselves lean closer to listen. May your heart be gentle with itself, he says. May you rest knowing you are enough, exactly as you are. May peace settle into you like soft rain falling on fertile soil. Your chest loosens at the words. They sink deeper than thought, landing somewhere instinctual, somewhere quiet and ancient. May you release the sorrows that cling to your shoulders, he continues. May you forgive yourself for the moments you did not know better. May the kindness you seek from the world rise first from within you. The night around you thickens with warmth, not heat, more like the feeling of someone placing a hand softly against your back. Your journey does not end here, the Buddha says, but tonight you deserve rest. Let the teachings settle in your heart like seeds sleeping in the soil. You inhale, feeling that metaphor become real. Wisdom settling inside you, sinking into the places that need healing, ready to rise when life calls for it. May your dreams be gentle, he whispers. May they show you what your waking mind is still learning to trust. A breeze moves through the meadow, slow and warm. It feels like the world itself is exhaling. May you trust in your inner light, he says. It will guide you, even when your eyes cannot see the path. The Buddha's voice becomes softer, steadier, like the steady pulse of calm at the center of the world. You are not alone, he says. Not in your sadness, not in your joy, not in your journey. You are with all beings. Rest in that truth. Your body relaxes even further. Shoulders, jaw, hands. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to fix. Just this moment. The Buddha shifts slightly, the grass whispering beneath him. Know this, he says gently. You are worthy of rest. You are worthy of peace. You are worthy of love. You feel the warmth in your chest expand, slow, steady, like a lantern glowing brighter in the night. Now sleep, he says, not as someone seeking answers, but as someone who has already found the quiet inside themselves. The meadow breathes with you. The stars hum like distant bells. The Buddha's presence remains steady beside you, a peaceful guardian in the night. May your heart rest deeply, he whispers. May your mind be light. May your spirit be held in peace. His voice fades into the soft rhythm of your breath. And when dawn returns, he says, almost inaudibly, may you rise renewed, awake to the wisdom within you. Then silence. Warm, gentle, complete. You sink into it. Safe, calm, at peace. Carried by the Buddha's good night blessing as sleep drifts toward you like a quiet tide.